Chapter 1993. The lunatic had stopped. The disciples of the other sword peaks also returned to their cave residences one after another. However, there were also many disciples who gathered together and discussed with righteous indignation. Senior brother, may I know how to get to the number 1 sword peak? Above one of the sword peaks, Qin Feiyong stopped and looked at the few young men and women who were at peak perfection and asked with a smile. Go straight. The highest sword peak in the middle is the number 1 sword peak. A young man said without looking up. Thank you, senior brother. Qin Feiyong cupped his hands and smiled, then left with Huolian and the other 2. Wait. But the young man suddenly froze and hurriedly turned to look at Qin Feiyong and the other 3. Qin Feiyong stopped and looked at the young man. Senior brother, what's the matter? He had an extremely humble look on his face. The young man said, You don't even know the number 1 sword peak. Are you new disciples? Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded. The young man said, So, that lunatic just now was mad at you? It can't be considered flipping out. It's just that some people competing for the first place provoked that person. Qin Feiyong smiled. Competing for the first place? The young men and women shook their heads when they heard this. With that lunatic here, do you think it's your turn to compete for the first place? You're really unlucky to be assigned to that lunatic sword peak. Since we're from the same sect, we'll give you a piece of advice. Don't provoke that lunatic. Otherwise, you'll never have a peaceful day in the 9th Heaven Palace. They looked at Qin Feiyong and the other 4. Although they were giving advice out of goodwill, there was a hint of gloating in their eyes. Thank you, senior brothers and sisters. We'll remember it. Qin Feiyong cupped his hands and thanked him. Then he turned around and left. Fire Lotus followed Qin Feiyong and thought, Brother, why does it sound more and more wrong? I also feel like I've been tricked. Qin Rushuang said. This matter is actually very clear. We were purposely arranged by Changli to go to that sword peak. Huai sighed. Deliberately arranged? Qin Feiyong was taken aback. He turned to Huai and asked suspiciously, Brother Hua, what do you mean? You wish. The outer sect has a total of 10,000 sword peaks, which can accommodate 10 million disciples. And now there are only a little over 8 million outer sect disciples. In other words, currently there are still over 100 empty sword peaks in the outer sect. But this Changli, why didn't he arrange for us to go to other sword peaks? Why did he want us to go to that madman's sword peak? Hui said. Maybe they don't want to waste resources. After all, it's a waste of resources for one person to occupy an entire sword peak. Qin Feiyong guessed. Brother Jiang, will you die if you don't act stupid? With your brain, I've already explained it so clearly. How could you not have thought of it? Hui said angrily. Qin Feiyong smiled embarrassedly. Alas! Originally, we all thought that this elder Chang was a good person and was not instigated by Feng Wenhai. However, in reality, he had already set a trap for us unknowingly. One is a battle maniac known as the Madman. The other is known as an arrogant and conceited person. The meeting of these 2 people is equivalent to Mars colliding with Earth. Our elder Chang isn't simple at all. Hui sighed. Fire Lotus asked, You mean he wants to use the Madman to get rid of us? Isn't this obvious? But he is also one step behind. 2 people with similar personalities may not necessarily become opponents. They may also become friends. Hui smiled. Friends? Qin Rushuang and Fire Lotus heard this and turned to look at Qin Feiyong. They found that Qin Feiyong had a smile on his face. Could it be that the 2 of them would really become friends? Sword Peak number 1. Duty Hall. Changli leaned against the chair beside the tea table and leisurely sipped his tea. Disciples Zhang Haoyan, Zhang Rushuang, Zhang Fire Lotus, and Huai request to see Elder Chang. Suddenly, several voices came from outside the door. Changli was stunned and looked up at the door. He saw Qin Feiyong and the other 3 standing respectfully outside the door. What's going on? Looking at Qin Feiyong and the other 3, the teacup in his hand almost fell to the ground. He had thought that the lunatic would at least give them a good beating if not kill them. But now the 4 of them were unharmed? What was going on? They did not fight. But how was this possible? As an outer sect elder, he knew the madman's temper better than anyone. Once the previous situation happened, they would definitely fight. Elder, what's wrong? Qin Feiyong and the other three looked at each other. A smile flashed in their eyes, but they looked at Changli suspiciously. No. Changli came back to his senses and quickly waved his hand. He asked with a smile, "Why are you looking for me? Elder, didn't you say that after settling down, we'll come to get the identity token?" Qin Feiyong said. Yes. Changli nodded repeatedly, got up and walked to the desk next to him. He said, "Come in." Yes. The four of them walked into the hall one after another. Changli also sat at the desk and took out 4 white tokens. The tokens were made of jade and could be as big as a baby's palm. On the front side there was a flame pattern and the back side was blank. Changli said with a smile, "Tell me your names again." Zhang Haotian, Jiang Fire Lotus, Jiang Rushuang, Hua Yi. The four of them spoke one after another. Changli waved his fingers, and on the back side of the 4 tokens, the names of Qin Feiyong and the other 3 appeared. "This is your identity medallion," said Yi Futian. After Changli said, he took out 4 Qinkuan bags and put them together with the 4 tokens. He said with a smile, "These are your clothes." "Thank you, Elder." Qin Feiyong and the other 3 stepped forward one by one, and took their identity token and Qinkuan bags. "There's something that I have to remind you of. It doesn't matter what you wear outside, but in the Empyrean Palace, you must wear clothes with flame patterns. If you don't wear it, you will be punished. This is the rule. In addition, the Empyrean Palace forbids private fighting. If you have any grudges that you have to settle, you can go to the battlefield. Once you enter the battlefield, you can fight however you want. It doesn't matter even if you kill the other party." Changli said. "Forbidding fighting?" Qin Feiyong and the other 3 frowned. Qin Feiyong said suspiciously, "Elder, since fighting is prohibited, why did that lunatic of our sword peak dare to fight in public? Did he fight?" Changli was stunned. "Yes. Elder, you didn't know about the big commotion before?" Qin Feiyong said. "I didn't pay much attention to it just now. However, this lunatic is a little special. If you can bear with it, then bear with it. When I have time I will also talk to him." Changli laughed. "Didn't pay much attention?" Qin Feiyong and the other 3 looked at each other. This was really a lame excuse. However, they did not expose it in front of him. Changli waved his hand and laughed. "All right, go. Disciple will take his leave." The 4 of them bowed respectfully, then turned around and walked out. Hui secretly said, "Did you guys notice that even this Changli is a little afraid of that battle maniac?" The 3 of them nodded. Hui sent a sound transmission. "It seems that the identity of this lunatic needs to be investigated." "What is this?" Suddenly, Qin Feiyong turned his head to look at a black slate on the wall. The slate was 5 to 6 meters long, and there were rows of small words written on it. "That's the bulletin board. It's used to issue missions," Changli said. "Bulletin board?" Qin Feiyong and the other 3 were stunned. "Look at the first line of missions. It's to find a ghost flower. The reward is 100 soul stones. In other words, as long as you find the ghost flower and hand it over to us, you will get 100 soul stones. And there is no upper limit. For example, if you hand over 100 ghost flowers, you will get 10,000 soul stones." Changli explained with a smile. "So that's how it is." The 4 of them suddenly understood and looked at it one by one. On the bulletin board, even if it was looking for something, the missions issued by our outer sect are basically the simplest. There is not much risk. Of course, the reward is definitely much lower, Changli said. Qin Rushuang asked curiously, "What about the inner and outer sect?" "The inner sect is definitely not comparable to the outer sect. The missions issued by the inner sect even include assassination. If you are not careful, you will lose your life. Of course, we will not let you kill good people. Those who are not listed as assassination targets are basically heinous people. As for the reward, there are missions as high as thousands, tens of thousands, and even hundreds of thousands," Changli said. "So high?" The 4 of them were shocked. "Actually, to us elders, especially the people from the law enforcement hall, these missions are simply nothing. The reason why we do not do it and instead issue missions is to give you disciples a way to earn soul stones. On the other hand, it is also a training for you. However, you are now outer sect disciples. Although the reward for the missions issued by the inner sect is higher, It is still too much for you. So do not bite off more than you can chew, Changli warned. Qin Rushuang's eyes shone brightly as she asked, in that case, outer sect disciples like us can also accept missions from the inner sect? No. I am warning you this as a precaution. Although outer sect disciples cannot accept missions from the inner sect, it is inevitable that they will have friends or relatives in the inner sect. In the past, there were many outer sect disciples who sought help from their friends or relatives in the inner sect in order to obtain more soul stones. However, this is very foolish. Many people have lost their lives because of this. Changli sighed. Then why don't you put an end to this? Qin Feiyang frowned. We have put an end to it. There are even clear rules that forbid inner sect disciples from doing this. But even so, we can't stop them. For example, the four of you. Zhang Haoyan is in the inner sect. Zhang Rushuang, Zhang Fire Lotus, and Huai are in the outer sect. You will privately seek help from Zhang Haoyan to accept missions from the inner sect and promise to give him a certain reward. If there is a reward, Zhang Haoyan will definitely keep his mouth shut. If Zhang Haoyan does not say anything, how would we elders know that he is actually helping you accept missions? So this kind of thing cannot be put an end to. Changli said. That's true. The four of them nodded. Chapter 1994. So you must remember what I said. Don't touch the missions of the inner sect. Being down to earth is the right way. Changli smiled. Thank you for your teachings, elder. The four of them said gratefully. Go. Changli waved his hand and smiled. We'll take our leave. The four of them glanced at the bulletin board and left the hall. This Changli is really a smiling tiger. He cares so much about his disciples. I'm almost touched by him. Hui shook his head and sighed. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, we have to be on guard against this kind of person at all times. Fire Lotus said, brother, I noticed that the mission of Death Fruit and Ghostwood was also posted on the bulletin board. I saw it too. These herbs can only be exchanged for 100 soul stones, just like the ghost flower. They're really cheap. Qin Feiyang shook his head. Hui was slightly stunned and said 100 soul stones are already a lot. Okay? Go to the treasure pavilion and see if they'll take out a soul stone. Treasure pavilion. Speaking of the treasure pavilion, Qin Feiyang thought of something. Why hadn't Shangguan Qiu responded? Was it really that difficult to get the treasure pavilion to trade with soul stones? Not long after Qin Feiyang and the other three left, the young man in black and the others also came in. Everyone else leave first. One by one. Looking at the crowd, Changli frowned and said. Hearing this, everyone hurriedly left the main hall. Changli glanced at the young man in black standing by the table. He took out his token and asked, What's your name? Elder, my name is Ma Guang. The young man in black said respectfully. Changli asked calmly, Did something happen in your sword peak? Ma Guang looked hesitant. He was extremely wary of the strength that lunatic had shown. So he didn't know how to answer Changli. I think it's necessary to tell you that the fate of the outer sect disciples is in my hands, Changli said indifferently, his words carrying an undisguised threat. Ma Guang's eyes flickered as he blurted out, Something did happen. We were discussing how to split the cave when the guy called Maniac suddenly went crazy and forced us all to kneel on the ground. Are we talking or fighting? Changli Dao said. Disciple knows his mistake. Ma Guang's body trembled, and he quickly knelt on the ground. Changli raised his eyebrows. Don't you know that our Nine Heavens Palace forbids private fights? Disciple does not know. But this disciple already knows his mistake, and will not dare to do it again. Ma Guang said in a panic. Look at you, this elder didn't even say that I'm going to punish you and you're already so scared. Get up. Changli said indifferently. Thank you, elder. Ma Guang said gratefully. He stood up and looked at Changli with fear and trepidation. Changli asked, Was there any friction between that madman and Zhang Haotian back then? Yes. They even fought before. But lunatic's methods seemed to be useless against Zhang Haotian. Ma Guang did not dare to hide anything. He quickly recounted the situation back then. What? He can actually ignore lunatic's oppression? Changli was in disbelief. In the end, lunatic gave Zhang Haotian a note, but we don't know what's written on it. We only heard what they said at the end. Be there or be square. Ma Guang said. Be there or be square, Changli frowned. Elder, is this matter very important? Ma Guang asked cautiously. It's not important. Changli smiled and said, how about this? This elder will give you a task. Elder, please instruct. As long as this disciple can do it, I will not shirk my duty. Ma Guang bowed. This was a good opportunity to curry favor with Changli. In the future, help this elder more and pay attention to the movements of lunatic in Zhanghaoyan. If there's any situation, you have to inform this elder immediately, Changli said. Pay attention? Ma Guang was stunned. To put it nicely, pay attention. To put it bluntly, it was monitoring. But why did he have to monitor these two? Moreover, it didn't matter if he monitored others. But it had to be these two fierce people. If he was discovered by the other party, wouldn't he be in big trouble? To be able to enter the Nine Heavens Palace, how could Ma Guang be a foolish person? He really didn't want to do this kind of job. Changli said meaningfully, it seems that my words as an elder are not very useful. No. This disciple will definitely complete the mission. Ma Guang hurriedly waved his hand and promised. That's more like it. Do your job well for this elder. When the time comes, you won't be short of benefits. Changli chuckled. Thank you, elder. Ma Guang nodded and bowed, looking flattered. And then there was Qin Feiyang. After returning to the Sword Peak, Hui returned to his cave. Qin Feiyang, on the other hand, brought Fire Lotus and Qin Rushuang into the castle, and excitedly sorted out the spoils of war. After half a day of sorting, the results were finally out. And half a day inside the castle was only a short while outside. I have a total of 275,000 soul stones here. If you add the cripple's 50,000, there will be a total of 330,000. Qin Rushuang said with a smile. White-eyed wolf, mermaid princess, and the rest of cripple's 50,000 soul stones had almost been refined. In total, I have over 400 million divine gems, said Li Jie. Fire Lotus also smiled. Not bad, not bad. Qin Feiyang nodded with satisfaction. What about you? The two girls looked at Qin Feiyang. They also have a lot of herbs and elixirs. Among them, the God Power Elixir and the Divine Life Elixir have the most herbs. There are also some herbs for the Life Elixir. However, there aren't any herbs for the other elixirs, such as the Heavenly Dust Elixir and the Four Elephants Infinite Elixir. I reckon that they are worth a few 100 million in total. As for the divine weapons and divine techniques, there are a few divine weapons, but they are all low-grade and middle-grade divine weapons. They aren't worth much. As for the divine techniques, there aren't any. Qin Feiyang smiled. Qin Rushuang said, isn't there still that godly bow? Qin Feiyang took out the Sun Destroyer divine bow. Divine power surged and enveloped the entire ancient castle. He smiled and said, our biggest gain this time, apart from the 330,000 soul stones, is this divine weapon. The Sun Destroyer divine bow was a pinnacle divine weapon that surpassed the supreme grade, so its value couldn't be measured by divine gems. Qin Rushuang and Fire Lotus looked at the Sun Destroyer divine bow with smiles in their eyes. But suddenly, Fire Lotus frowned and the smile in her eyes disappeared. She said in a low voice, Qin Dage, I suddenly thought of a problem. Go ahead. Qin Feiyang said. When we killed Nie Yun, although only Mu Tianyang and the other two were nearby, Feng Yuan and the other higher-ups must have seen it with their own eyes. We don't have to worry about Mu Tianyang and the other two. But this Feng Yuan, with his means, I think he will definitely reveal this matter to Nie Yun's father. At that time, the city lord of Star River City won't let it go. Fire Lotus said. Qin Feiyang looked at Fire Lotus in surprise and praised. Not bad, you can think of so many things. Hulian chuckled. Actually, I also thought about this problem. But what does it matter? We are now in Ninth Heaven Palace. Even if the city lord of Star River City wants to avenge Nie Yun, he has no chance. Qin Feiyang smiled. Hulian asked, then, what if the city lord has any relatives or friends in the Nine Heavens Palace? We don't cause trouble, but we are not afraid of trouble. Do you understand? Qin Feiyang asked with a smile. We don't cause trouble, but we are not afraid of trouble. Fire Lotus pondered for a while and nodded with a smile. I understand. Boom! This time, A powerful godly aura burst out all of a sudden. Qin Feiyang and the other two were stunned. They turned their heads and saw that the divine aura came from Zhao Tailai. I finally broke through, Qin Feiyang muttered. Zhao Tailai's aura had already risen to the level of an early-stage war god. Boom! Following closely, Tang Hai's aura also erupted. He also broke through? Qin Feiyang was stunned. This way he had two more early-stage war gods by his side. Young master. A moment later, Tang Hai and the other two retracted their aura, opened their eyes and looked at Qin Feiyang excitedly. In the Black Tortoise world, they didn't even dare to think about becoming an early-stage war god. But ever since they followed this young man in front of them, not only did they break the shackles of the demon imprint and step into the war god realm, but they also stepped into the early-stage war god realm in such a short period of time. It was like a dream. The cultivation of an early-stage war god is far from enough in the ancient world. Continue to work hard. As for the soul stone, you don't need to think about it. Qin Feiyang smiled. Yes. The two nodded. They were extremely touched. Even the treasure pavilion was reluctant to use the soul stone to trade. But Qin Feiyang let them refine it without holding back. Where else could they find such a good young master in today's world? The decision back then was indeed correct. This man was someone worthy of them following, pledging their loyalty and protecting. Qin Feiyang looked at Qin Rushuang and smiled. You should also hurry up and cultivate. I know even without you telling me. Ever since she knew that Qin Badian was still alive, Qin Rushuang's desire for strength was unprecedentedly strong. If it wasn't for the assessment, she would have entered the ancient castle and refined the soul stone. Qin Feiyang smiled and appeared in the Black Tortoise world with Fire Lotus. Fire Lotus looked suspiciously at Qin Feiyang and said, Qin Dage, why aren't you refining the soul stone in the ancient castle? It's still far from enough. Look at the Blood Kirin. The reason why it hasn't become a god of war is because it didn't have enough soul stones before. Now, although we have obtained quite a lot, it still requires 100,000 soul stones to become a god of war. In other words, just the Blood Kirin will consume 1/3 of what we obtained this time. If I refine more, how much will I have left? Qin Feiyang said sadly. Hearing this, Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyang in a daze. Why are you looking at me like that? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. You would rather not have it and give it to your subordinates first. The Blood Kirin and the others are so lucky to have met such a good young master. Fire Lotus shook her head and smiled. They have followed me through life and death. Of course I can't treat them badly. Plus, if they become stronger, I will become stronger as well. It doesn't matter who refines the soul stone. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Fire Lotus's eyes flashed with a strange light when she heard this. At first, she didn't feel anything other than gratitude towards Qin Feiyang. Because at that time Qin Feiyang had allowed her to absorb the souls of the dead in the desert and form a physical body. But during this period of time, as she got along with him, she realized that this man had an irresistible charm that could captivate people at any time and place. This made her gradually become addicted to him. Now there was an uncontrollable desire in her heart. She wished that she was this man's sister. If that was the case, then she would be very happy for the rest of her life. Chapter 1995. Qin Feiyang didn't know what Fire Lotus was thinking. He lowered his head and didn't say anything. The problem he had to deal with now wasn't just the soul stone and the herbs for the undead bottleneck-breaking elixir. There was also the elixir fire and the elixir furnace. Relatively speaking, the elixir fire and the elixir furnace were more important. After all, even if they found the herbs for the elixir, they couldn't refine it without the elixir fire and the elixir furnace. After a moment of silence, Qin Feiyang turned to Fire Lotus and said with a smile, "Girl, help me go to the treasure pavilion." Treasure pavilion? Fire Lotus was stunned. Yes. Go to Shangguanshu and buy 2 9th-grade elixir fires and a divine elixir furnace, Qin Feiyang said. Aren't you waiting for her to come to you? Fire Lotus was suspicious. These are 2 different things. Besides, we have a lot of divine gems now. It should be enough to buy these things. Also, if you have extra divine gems, buy some teleportation altars, Qin Feiyang said with a smile. I'll go now. Fire Lotus nodded. Qin Feiyong then took out a few teleportation altars and handed them to Fire Lotus. He then sent Fire Lotus out. He then closed his eyes and extended his senses infinitely. Soon he found Dan Wangkai. As for the teleportation altars, there were 30 or 40 of them in the interspatial rings of Niayun and the others. But of course the more the better. At this moment, Dan Wangkai was like an ordinary person living in a small mountain village. He worked when the sun rose and rested when the sun set. In other words, Dan Wangkai was still in the state of meditation. The so-called meditation was to calm down one's heart. This was the first step to becoming a god. In other words, Dan Wangkai hadn't really started to understand the profound meaning of becoming a god. What's going on? Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. After so many years, why was he still at the first step? Wait. After so many years? Qin Feiyong couldn't help but smile bitterly. Many years had indeed passed in the castle. However, the Black Tortoise world's time laws were the same as the outside world. As for Dan Wangkai, it was only after he entered the ancient world that he started cultivating in seclusion. After breaking through to the peak 9-star combat emperor realm, he came to the Black Tortoise world to comprehend the profundity of ascension. In other words, Dan Wangkai had only been in the Black Tortoise world for a few days. How could he possibly comprehend the profound meaning of becoming a deity in just a few days? One had to know that back then even he had taken half a year to comprehend it. Good luck, Qin Feiyong murmured. Without Dan Wangkai by his side, he instantly felt the pressure double. Because Dan Wangkai was not here, he had to personally refine the pills. Although refining pills was simple, it was actually the most time-consuming and exhausting laborious work. Buzz. Suddenly, the image crystal buzzed. Qin Feiyong took out the image crystal, and Gongzi Feng's shadow condensed. Big Brother Jiang, I have already secretly revealed the news of you entering the Nine-Heaven Palace to Feng Zijuan. Gongzi Feng immediately laughed. So fast. Qin Feiyong was stunned. Of course we have to be efficient. Moreover, the person we are targeting is Feng Zijuan, so we definitely can't be negligent. Gongzi Feng chuckled. Qin Feiyong couldn't help but laugh and asked, then what was his reaction? His reaction is funny. First, he was surprised, then he looked like he was going to bite someone. Gongzi Feng said. Qin Feiyong smiled faintly and said, coincidentally, there are a few things that I would like to ask you about. You're being too polite by saying that you're asking for advice. If you have any questions, just say it. As long as I know, I won't hide anything. Gongzi Feng said. Qin Feiyong said, who is this lunatic from the outer sect? Lunatic. Gongzi Feng was stunned and frowned. Are you talking about the lunatic who occupies a sword peak by himself? Qin Feiyong nodded. How do you know him? Gongzi Feng was shocked. I am living with him now. Not long ago, after you sent me a message, I had a small conflict with him. Qin Feiyong was helpless. Gongzi Feng was stunned. Qin Feiyong frowned. Who is this person? Gongzi Feng came back to his senses and said in a low voice, Big Brother Jiang, you can't provoke this person. If there was a conflict just now, you have to apologize to him. Is it that serious? Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. It's more serious than what I said. This lunatic is an extremely belligerent person. Anyone who is targeted by him can't escape even if they want to. Moreover, his character is very irritable. Doesn't the Nine-Heaven Palace have a rule that forbids fighting? But this rule is useless against this person. As long as his temper flares up, regardless of the occasion, he will immediately start a fight. Gongzi Feng said. He's so reckless. Don't the higher-ups care about it? Qin Feiyong frowned. Care. Gongzi Feng shook his head and smiled. No one dares to care. Why do you say so? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. This lunatic's real name, identity, and strength are all a mystery. No one knows. Even my grandfather and the others know nothing about it. It is said that he grew up in the Nine-Heaven Palace and was very naughty when he was young. In the past, there were many elders who wanted to punish him because of anger. But every time when they wanted to punish him, the great elder would personally come forward and plead for him. Gongzi Feng said. The great elder pleaded for him? Qin Feiyong's expression was dazed. This was really beyond his expectations. However, although the Great Elder has helped him time and time again, neither that madman nor the Great Elder himself have revealed their relationship. As a result, many people are guessing whether this lunatic is the Great Elder's illegitimate son, or maybe he is the Great Elder's disciple. In short, there are different opinions, Gong Zifeng said. Qin Feiyang was stunned and shook his head with a smile. This Nine-Heaven Palace is really an interesting place. Interesting? I'm afraid only you would think so. Gong Zifeng shook his head. Qin Feiyang said, let's not talk about the lunatic first. Do you know about the Nine-Heaven Palace's cemetery? What? Cemetery? Gong Zifeng's eyes widened and he said in shock, Brother Jiang, why are you asking about this? Qin Feiyang said, I heard that there are death fruit and Yin Soul wood in the Nine-Heaven Palace's cemetery. My dear brother, even if there are these herbs in the cemetery, you can't have any ideas about the cemetery. That's a forbidden area of our Nine-Heaven Palace. Let me tell you this, if you are discovered, even if you are the Great Elder's son, you can forget about leaving alive. The resource hall has the death fruit in Yin Soul wood. Why do you want to go further? Gong Zifeng was speechless. I also thought about it. But with my relationship with your grandfather, going to the resource hall is tantamount to asking for humiliation, Qin Feiyang said. That's true. Gong Zifeng nodded and frowned. Then you can also go to the treasure hall. I don't have so many divine gems on me now. Qin Feiyang was helpless. If you don't have divine gems, you can slowly earn them. Gong Zifeng was somewhat helpless. Without divine gems, he wanted to go to the cemetery? Wasn't he eating a leopard's guts? Wait a minute. Listening to this person's tone, it seemed that he couldn't wait? Gong Zifeng asked. Are you in urgent need of these two things? Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. I got it. Don't go to the cemetery. Leave this matter to me. After Gong Zifeng finished speaking, he turned off the image crystal. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Obviously, Gong Zifeng wanted to help him get Yin Soul wood and death fruit. To be honest, he really didn't mean that. However, if Gong Zifeng could really get Yin Soul wood and death fruit, it would be a great help to him. Putting away the image crystal, Qin Feiyang left the Black Tortoise realm and appeared in the cave. At this moment, a young man in black stood outside the door, pacing back and forth. After a while, the young man in black gritted his teeth and knocked hard on the stone door. Qin Feiyang, who was inside the cave, was stunned, and with a wave of his hand, the stone door quickly opened. It's you? Qin Feiyang was surprised. The young man in black looked at Qin Feiyang with some fear and asked, Senior Brother Jiang, can I come in? Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Sure, come in. The young man in black was Ma Guang. Chapter 1996. Hearing this, Ma Guang was overjoyed. He cupped his hands and said, Thank you, Brother Jiang. If you need any help in the future, please let me know. That's what you said. Don't go back on your word. Qin Feiyang smiled. Once a word has been spoken, it cannot be taken back. Ma Guang patted his chest and vowed. But after thinking for a while, he smiled and said, Of course, Brother Jiang. You can't ask me to do something that will get me killed. Qin Feiyang shook his head and laughed. Although I asked you to report truthfully, there are some things that you need to think about. Understood. Ma Guang nodded. It was obvious that Zhang Chun was telling him to say what he should say, and not say what he shouldn't say. Qin Feiyang's eyes carried a trace of a smile. Ma Guang was indeed a smart man. Maybe he could buy him over and use him. Of course, he didn't want to keep Ma Guang by his side. After all, the people and beasts around him already gave him a headache. After thinking for a while, Qin Feiyang glanced at Ma Guang's hands and found that he wasn't wearing an interspatial ring. So he had an idea. He took out an interspatial ring and handed it to Ma Guang with a smile. Brother Ma, this is a little gift from me. Please accept it. This, Ma Guang stared at the interspatial ring in shock. An interspatial ring was priced at 10 million divine gems in the treasure school. Even if an outer disciple had enough divine gems, he wouldn't be willing to buy an interspatial ring with 10 million divine gems. So, outer sect disciples basically used Qingkuan bags. Qin Feiyang stuffed the interspatial ring into Ma Guang's hands and said with a smile, Just a little gift from me. Don't mind it. No. Ma Guang quickly waved his hands and was overjoyed. What a windfall! And for Qin Feiyang, an interspatial ring was nothing, because this time Nye Yun and the other 5's interspatial rings all fell into his hands. In other words, including the one he gave to Fire Lotus, he now had 8 interspatial rings. Whoosh! Just as Ma Guang happily put away the universe ring and was about to thank Qin Feiyang, a woman wearing a mask landed in front of the cave with a piercing sound. Then, without knocking on the door, she directly pushed open the stone door and entered the cave. It was the Fire Lotus. Fire Lotus was stunned when she saw Ma Guang. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, Brother Ma, I still have some matters to attend to, so I won't see you out. All right. Ma Guang nodded and tactfully turned around to leave. What is he doing here? After Ma Guang left, Fire Lotus closed the stone door and looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Qin Feiyang briefly explained the situation. This Cheng Li is indeed a treacherous villain. Fire Lotus snorted coldly as a cold light flashed in her eyes. Let's not talk about him for now. Where's the alchemy fire and alchemy furnace? Qin Feiyang looked at the Fire Lotus expectantly. However, Fire Lotus lowered her head, her eyes full of anger and self-blame. Qin Feiyang's eyelids twitched as he asked in confusion, What's wrong? I'm useless. I couldn't buy the alchemy fire and alchemy furnace. Fire Lotus said. Why didn't you buy them? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Shangguanqiu won't sell them. She also told us not to go to the treasure pavilion to look for her in the future. Fire Lotus said angrily. Won't sell them? Qin Feiyang frowned. The treasure pavilion was open for business. How could they do such a thing? It's true. I asked her the reason, but she didn't say anything. If I didn't leave, I would probably be chased out by her. Hualian's face was filled with anger. That's strange. What's the reason? Could it be that she's dissatisfied with the negotiation last time? Qin Feiyang mumbled. But even if the negotiation failed, it shouldn't be that bad. Fire Lotus said, Qin Dage, do you want me to go again? No need. Since Shangguanqiu has already rejected it, it's useless no matter how many times you go. Qin Feiyang shook his head and then looked at Fire Lotus, whose eyes were full of self-blame, and said with a smile, You don't have to blame yourself. There must be another reason for this. Hearing this and looking at the smile on Qin Feiyang's face, Fire Lotus felt much better. You didn't buy the teleportation altar? Qin Feiyang asked. Fire Lotus nodded. Is this considered a ban on me? Interesting. Qin Feiyang smiled, but there was a trace of anger in his eyes. Negotiating a deal was a very common thing. After all, it was a deal. Both parties had to be satisfied. But because of this, the treasure pavilion had banned him. He would remember this debt. Right. When I came back just now, I met a middle-aged man near the sword peak. He asked me to give this to you. Hualian suddenly thought of something. She took out a neatly folded piece of paper from her bosom and handed it to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang was stunned. He took the note and asked suspiciously, What's written on it? I didn't read it. Fire Lotus shook her head. Qin Feiyang opened the note and was immediately stunned. There were only 7 words on the note. Find out the truth. The remaining 4 words were a name. Shangguan Fenglan. What does this mean? Fire Lotus was also stunned when she saw the content of the note. Find out the truth, Shangguan Fenglan, Qin Feiyang murmured. Suddenly, a light flashed in his eyes. Then he clenched his fist and the note was immediately crushed. Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Qin Feiyang looked at the Fire Lotus and said with a sigh, Lass, the deep meaning hidden in these few words isn't simple. Not simple. Fire Lotus frowned. Find out the truth? What truth? The truth, of course, is that I slandered Jotian Palace. In other words, this Shangguan Fenglan already knew that I was framed. Qin Feiyang said. Fire Lotus was slightly stunned. She was pleasantly surprised. This is a good thing. Finally, someone can clear our name. A good thing? I don't think so. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Why? Fire Lotus was puzzled. Since Shangguan Fenglan knows that we've been wrongly accused, she must also know who's framing us. But why didn't she say it directly? And when we were on the stairway, she didn't mention it at all. Instead, she forced us to apologize. And now she wants us to investigate the truth ourselves. Girl, this matter is not simple, Qin Feiyang said. Fire Lotus guessed. Maybe she doesn't have any evidence, so she wants us to investigate it ourselves? Even if she doesn't have any evidence, she can clear our name first. But she didn't do that. Do you know what this means? It means that she wants to deal with Feng Wenhai, Qin Feiyang said solemnly. What? Fire Lotus was shocked. She said angrily, if that's the case, then isn't she using us? Yes, she is using us. Qin Feiyang nodded. Is there a need for that? She is the hall master of the tribunal hall. Isn't it easy for her to deal with Feng Wenhai? Fire Lotus frowned. But don't forget that Feng Wenhai's father is the hall master of the resource hall. He controls all the resources of Empyrean Palace. In terms of status in Empyrean Palace, the two can be said to be equal. With such a powerful background, Shangguan Fenglan dares to deal with Feng Wenhai openly? Qin Feiyang sneered. She doesn't dare and she can't use us. With our little strength, how can we win against Feng Wenhai? Fire Lotus was furious. This was simply pushing them into a fire pit. Qin Feiyang shook his head and sighed. That's why I said this matter isn't simple. Empyrean Palace isn't as peaceful as we think. Then what do you plan to do? Fire Lotus was worried. You know why I joined Empyrean Palace, so I don't want to get involved in this mess. Even if I have to bear the crime of slandering Empyrean Palace, even if everyone looks at me strangely, I don't care. Qin Feiyang said. Then should we go and refuse? Fire Lotus said. Refuse? Girl, you're too naive. If we really refuse, I'm afraid not only Feng Yuan, but also Shangguan Fenglan will fall out with us. What kind of situation will we face at that time? You should be able to imagine. Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. Fire Lotus said angrily, we can't do this and we can't do that. Are we just going to be used by her? Don't worry. Don't you know me? Without a price, how can I help her? Don't worry about this matter. I'll deal with it. Qin Feiyang comforted. What about the alchemy fire and alchemy furnace? Fire Lotus asked. That's even simpler. The person the treasure pavilion wants to ban is me. When the time comes, I'll ask old Zhao and old Tang to go. Won't it be solved? Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. That's true. Tang Hai and Zhao Tailai haven't seen each other since they entered the ancient world. No matter how powerful Shangguan Qiu is, he definitely won't know it's your people. Fire Lotus said in realization. Smart. Qin Feiyang smiled. You've already said it so clearly. If I still don't understand, then I'm a pig. After Fire Lotus finished speaking, she suddenly seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly said, by the way, when I came back just now I saw Lunatic. Really? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Yes. When I came back, he just came out of cave abode number 1. But he was too fast so I didn't see his face clearly. Fire Lotus said. He's indeed a battle maniac. He can't wait for a moment. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. From what you said, you seem to know that he's going out. Fire Lotus said in surprise. I know a little. I'm going out for a while. I might not be back until very late. Don't run around because Gong Zifeng might send someone to find me. Qin Feiyang smiled mysteriously and reminded her softly. Very late. Fire Lotus was surprised and asked suspiciously, what are you going to do? I'll tell you when I come back. Qin Feiyang said. Being so mysterious is definitely not a good thing. Fire Lotus pursed her lips and reminded, you can't open the altar in the 9th Heaven Palace. You have to go out through the heaven stairway. Can't open the altar? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Yes. When I went to the treasure pavilion, I wanted to open the altar and teleport directly, but I found that I couldn't. So I went out to ask around. It's just as Gao Xiaolong said. There's an invisible barrier around the 9th Heaven Palace that can block the altar's teleportation. You can only go in and out through the heaven stairway. Fire Lotus explained. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization and reached out his hand. Give me the divine crystals. Fire Lotus took out a universe pouch and handed it to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang grabbed the universe pouch and teleported out of the cave abode at lightning speed, flying toward the heaven stairway. When he walked down the heaven stairway and passed by the white-haired old man, Qin Feiyang glanced at the white-haired old man. Then, he opened a teleportation altar and disappeared without a trace. Chapter 1997. Sky Dragon City. Outside the city, in a dense forest, Qin Feiyang appeared out of thin air. Following closely, with a wave of his hand, two middle-aged men appeared. It was Zhao Tailai and Tang Hai. "Greetings, young master." The two bowed. Qin Feiyang asked, "Did you hear the conversation between Fire Lotus and I?" "Yes." The two nodded. "Good, the divine crystals are all inside. Go to the treasure pavilion, you must complete the mission." Qin Feiyang threw the Qianquan bag to the two of them. "Yes." The two of them respectfully responded and turned to walk towards Sky Dragon City. After watching the two of them leave, Qin Feiyang opened another altar and quickly left. With Tang Hai and Zhao Tailai handling things, he was at ease. Sky Dragon Sea. On the coast, a black-clothed youth stood proudly on a huge rock with his hands behind his back. He was about 1.8 meters tall with a jade-like appearance. Eyes like pearls and two thick eyebrows like a knife made his eyes look extremely sharp. Woo-woo. Waves of sea breeze blew. A head of thick black hair wantonly fluttered behind him. He was like a god with an extraordinary temperament, and the aura he exuded was extremely terrifying. And on his chest there was also a flame pattern. Swish. A white-clothed youth suddenly appeared in the sky. On his clothes there was also a flame pattern. The white-clothed youth glanced around, lowered his head to look at the black-clothed youth standing on the huge rock, and laughed. "You are indeed here." The black-clothed youth looked up and grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth, and said, "Didn't we agree to meet at night? Didn't you already come? Then I naturally can't let you wait here." The white-clothed youth laughed. "Haha," the black-clothed youth laughed and said, "After the agreement I really couldn't stay in the cave, so I decided to come first." "That's right." These two people, one was Qin Feiyang, the other was the madman in cave number 1. And at that time the madman gave Qin Feiyang a note was actually a challenge as well as the coordinates of this place. Originally, they made an appointment for the evening. But when he heard Fire Lotus say that madman had left the cave, Qin Feiyang guessed that he must have come here. As expected, he couldn't even wait for half a day. Just how battle-hungry was this guy? "Actually, I'm quite surprised too," Madman said again. "What accident?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "Originally, I thought that you would reject my challenge, but I didn't expect that you would agree without hesitation," Madman said. "If it were anyone else, I would definitely refuse. Because I'm not interested in such a boring and meaningless game. But for a battle maniac like you, I can't refuse, because if I don't agree, you will definitely not stop. So, I might as well fight with you so that I can have some peace in the future," Qin Feiyang said helplessly. "Haha," the madman laughed loudly and said, "Do you hate people like me?" "A little." Qin Feiyang did not deny it. "I like your straightforward personality. Follow me." Madman took a step forward and rushed into the endless sea without looking back. Qin Feiyang frowned and chased after him, asking, "Isn't it here? This place is too close to the Nine Heavens Palace. I don't want anyone to come and cause trouble when I'm fighting," Madman said. Qin Feiyang was a little helpless. The two of them, one in front and one behind, cut through the sky and went deep into the Sky Dragon Sea. Isn't that Madman? Why did he come to the Sky Dragon Sea? And the person next to him, he also seems a little familiar. Wait. He seems to be the fierce person who cheated Feng Zijuan. That's right, it's him, Jiang Haoyan. Why would these two people enter the Sky Dragon Sea together? Let's go and take a look. Along the way, Qin Feiyang and Madman met many people. These people were basically disciples of the Nine Heavens Palace, training at the edge of the Sky Dragon Sea. About half an hour passed. Behind the two of them, at least 200 to 300 people followed. This made Qin Feiyang involuntarily frown. Madman glanced at Qin Feiyang's expression, turned around, stared at those disciples and shouted, "Scram at once, otherwise I'll destroy you all." Hearing this, the 200 to 300 people immediately dispersed in an uproar. Their expressions were filled with fear. "Impressive." Qin Feiyang looked at Madman in admiration and said with a smile. Madman smiled smugly and continued to rush forward. The sea was very calm. The warm sun and refreshing sea breeze made people feel especially comfortable. And along the way, they did not see a single sea beast. It was very hard to imagine that such a peaceful sky dragon sea would be the northern domain's largest forbidden area. Don't underestimate this place. Although we didn't see any sea beasts, they are looking at us. It's just that with me around, they don't dare to show their heads. Madman said. Qin Feiyang was stunned and immediately released his divine sense, surging towards the sea below. Sure enough, under the sea, there were countless sea beasts staring at them. He was even more shocked. Just how terrifying was this madman's strength? Even these ferocious sea beasts were so afraid of him. Basically, all the sea beasts in this sea have been beaten up by me, Madman suddenly said, causing Qin Feiyang's jaw to almost drop. If that was really the case, then this guy in front of him was undoubtedly a madman. How far is it? Qin Feiyang calmed down the shock in his heart and asked. We're almost there, Madman said without turning his head. About 100 breaths later, an island gradually entered Qin Feiyang's sight. That island was huge, and even with Qin Feiyang's current cultivation, he couldn't see the end. It was like a continent standing on the sea. That island is shaped like a sea turtle, so I named it Turtle King Island. Turtle King Island is our battlefield, and ordinary opponents are not qualified to step into Turtle King Island, Madman said. In that case, I have to feel honored. Qin Feiyang was stunned. You should indeed feel honored, because you are the third person to step onto this island, Madman said. While talking, the two had already entered the sky above Turtle King Island, but Madman didn't stop and continued to fly towards the depths of the island. Third. Then who were the first two? Qin Feiyang asked suspiciously. The first person is naturally me, because Turtle King Island is my exclusive battlefield. Without my permission, not to mention the disciples of Nine Heavens Palace, even elder-level figures don't dare to step into this place. The second person is a woman called Feng Zihan, the #1 expert on the heaven list. Madman said. Feng Zihan, Qin Feiyang murmured. Isn't this woman the elder sister of young noble Feng? And she seems to be the master of the Jade Zither Pavilion. Qin Feiyang asked calmly. You fought with Feng Zihan before? Madman nodded. Then how is her strength? In the end, did you win or did she win? Qin Feiyang was curious. How can the #1 on the heaven list be weak? As for the end, I lost, Madman said. #1 on the heaven list? Qin Feiyang frowned. This so-called heaven list, he really didn't know what the situation was. Everyone on the heaven list is an existence that all the disciples of Nine Heavens Palace look up to. There are only a total of 10 people on the heaven list. Being on the heaven list is not only a proof of strength, but you can also get more resources. Let's put it bluntly. Those who are on the heaven list are the future palace master, vice palace master, and the candidates for the top 10 elders, Madman said. Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. He didn't expect the heaven list to be so valuable. What about the earth list? Qin Feiyang asked again. The earth list is a bit inferior. However, they are also candidates for the future palace master, Madman said. Qin Feiyang was secretly speechless. Madman suddenly grinned and said with disdain, actually, it's not a big deal. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Madman said, what candidates? What resources? I don't care about it. Even if you don't care about it, there are a lot of people who care about it. Qin Feiyang was speechless. Madman said in disdain, those people are all idiots. Isn't it good to be free in life? Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. He didn't expect this person to have such an indifferent temperament. It's really rare. Hold on. You just said that those who are on the heaven list can get more resources. How much is this more? Qin Feiyang asked. How should I put this? Madman pondered for a while and said, let's put it this way. The #1 on the heaven list can receive 1 million soul stones every month. What? 1 million? Qin Feiyang was dumbfounded. As an outer disciple, he could only receive 10 soul stones every month. 10 soul stones and 1 million soul stones, how many times was the difference? It was 100,000 times. Many people would often say that there was a huge difference between the two of them. At this moment, Qin Feiyang truly experienced this difference. We're here. Just as Qin Feiyong was in a daze, Madman's voice sounded. Qin Feiyong was taken aback and quickly came back to his senses. He looked around. This should be the center of Turtle King Island. The entire Turtle King Island was filled with mountains and rivers, but not a single blade of grass grew. It was filled with a desolate aura. There was no trace of a sea beast. There was dead silence all around. Madman took a step forward and landed half a mile away. He turned to face Qin Feiyong and said, "Are you ready?" Qin Feiyong took a deep breath and nodded to Madman. Boom! Madman was the first to erupt with an aura. But this aura was only at the level of a low-level war god. "What are you doing?" Qin Feiyong was suspicious. Since it's a spar, it naturally has to be fair. Now, whether it is my divine power or the strength of my body, they are all suppressed to the same level as you. In addition, in this spar we won't use divine weapons. We will rely on our own methods. Madman said. What about divine arts and battle souls? Qin Feiyong asked. Of course. Madman nodded. The corner of Qin Feiyong's mouth lifted slightly and he said with a smile, "Then you might lose." Haha, Madman suddenly laughed out loud. His eyes suddenly became sharp like blades as he said word by word. As long as you have the ability. Boom! Qin Feiyong didn't say anything else as divine power surged out. Chapter 1998. Shua. Just as Qin Feiyong released his aura, the madman took a step forward and arrived in front of Qin Feiyong, slapping out with his palm. Qin Feiyong moved his feet and easily avoided it. Seeing that Qin Feiyong didn't fight head-on, the madman couldn't help but raise his eyebrows. He turned around and clenched his fist, punching towards Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong's figure flashed again and again. In the same realm, he wasn't afraid of anyone, including speed. What do you mean? The madman was furious. Divine power surged out and blocked all of Qin Feiyong's escape routes. Then he punched towards Qin Feiyong. This scene seemed to be out of Qin Feiyong's expectations. He looked slightly flustered. He hurriedly raised his arm and slapped out. Seeing Qin Feiyong finally make a move, the madman's eyes flashed with anticipation. Yes, he was looking forward to the appearance of the golden light, which was the return formula. However, the golden light he was looking forward to did not appear. The fist and palm met in an instant. Humph! Qin Feiyong let out a muffled groan as his body shook. Immediately after, he was like a meteorite, smashing into the mountains below. Boom! A majestic mountain range that was thousands of feet tall collapsed in an instant. This? The madman was stunned. What about the golden light? Below, Qin Feiyong climbed out of the dust. His face was as pale as paper. He looked up at the madman and said, "You won." Won? The madman's face was dull. Immediately after, a monstrous anger roared out. The madman roared, "What kind of joke is this? Who was the one who confidently said that I might lose? Now it's over? Do you think I'm stupid? Why don't you pretend a bit more?" "I'm not pretending." Qin Feiyong shook his head. "Then tell me, why didn't the golden light that reflected my divine power in the morning appear? Such a heaven-defying method hasn't even been used yet and you dare to admit defeat. Do you really think I'm a fool?" The madman's hair stood up in anger. His body was full of hostility. Don't misunderstand. That golden light is indeed very powerful, but it can only be used once a day, Qin Feiyong said. Once? The madman raised his eyebrows. Yes. Qin Feiyong nodded. Then we'll wait. Let's spar tomorrow, the madman said. What? Qin Feiyong looked at madman in shock. He thought that the madman would stop after hearing this, but he didn't expect that he still wanted to fight. That's right. He came here purely as a show to satisfy his desires as a battle desire. But now, he still didn't stop. There was still didn't still. This was a bit was this madman simply sat cross-legged in the air. He looked at Qin Feiyong and coldly snorted. Before dawn, none of us are allowed to leave Turtle King Island. Restricting my freedom. Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. But the madman didn't pay attention to him and closed his eyes. Qin Feiyong frowned. It seemed that he couldn't avoid this battle. Madman. Qin Feiyong suddenly spoke. The madman still ignored him. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed with a cold light as he slapped out with his palm, golden light rolling out. The madman suddenly opened his eyes and they flickered. Qin Feiyong said, "Since you insist on fighting, then I'll accompany you, but there has to be a prize. Are you playing with me?" The madman turned a deaf ear and stared at Qin Feiyong, his eyes full of killing intent. "Playing with you? There's no need for that. I just don't want to do something meaningless." Qin Feiyong shook his head. "As long as you're willing to go all out, I can satisfy you." The madman raised the corner of his mouth and laughed. "Sure enough, you're a battle maniac. If you lose to me, you have to do something for me unconditionally. Similarly, if I lose to you, I have to do something for you as well." Qin Feiyong said, "No need. If you lose to me, you have to give me that technique that can reflect divine power." The madman said, "Deal." Qin Feiyong nodded. "Haha, straightforward enough, confident enough. Let's fight." The madman laughed and with surging divine power, he threw a punch at Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong didn't dodge anymore. He took a step into the sky and threw a punch at the madman. Neither of them used divine power. Boom! The two fists collided with a loud bang. A destructive aura like a tide surged out in all directions with the two as the center. The surrounding void was crazily shattered. Huh! Both of their eyes revealed a trace of surprise at the same time. The madman said, "You've tempered your body?" "Yes." Qin Feiyong nodded and said, "You've tempered your body too?" "Yes." The madman nodded. Haha. The two laughed at the same time, waved their fists, and began a physical battle. Bang! Bang! Rumble! The sound of fists colliding was like thunder from the 9 heavens, resounding in all directions. Outside Turtle King Island, above the sea, a group of people gathered here, looking at Turtle King Island curiously. These people were the disciples of 9 Heaven Palace that were driven away before, but later they quietly followed behind. They had already sensed the battle fluctuations inside. But because Turtle King Island was too big and Qin Feiyong and the madman were in the central area of Turtle King Island, they couldn't see the situation inside. Why are they fighting? You still don't know the temper of the madman. Who can escape from him? But then again, for Zhang Haotian to be invited to Turtle King Island by the madman, his strength definitely can't be underestimated. I used to think that this person had an undeserved reputation, but now it seems that he really has some ability. Aren't you talking nonsense? Is Turtle King Island a place that ordinary people can enter? In the past, only Feng Zihan had entered. Feng Zihan, that's the #1 powerhouse on the heaven list. Even some elders are inferior to her. Even now, I still remember that the last time the madman and Feng Zihan fought here for 3 days and 3 nights. In the end, even the great elder was alarmed. And this Zhang Haotian is the second person to enter Turtle King Island after Feng Zihan. Do you think his strength is simple? I just don't know how long Zhang Haotian can last in front of the madman this time. Everyone was discussing. They all wanted to enter Turtle King Island and watch the battle up close. But no one dared to take half a step forward. Haha, awesome, awesome. In the sky above the center of the island, the madman laughed loudly as he attacked mercilessly. Qin Feiyong also went all out. The power of his physical body poured out like a torrent. However, after countless rounds of collision, neither of them had any injuries. The madman said, "It's about time to warm up." "Yes, it's time to get serious." Qin Feiyong nodded his head. Boom! The two released their divine power at the same time. The madman's divine power was blood red, as if it was condensed from blood. It dyed the world red and emitted a monstrous evil aura. Qin Feiyong used the power of fire, turning into a sea of fire that swept in all directions. This world was like a big furnace in an instant. The two divine powers carried a destructive aura as they roared in the sky and fiercely collided together. Boom! The world lost its color and the void was annihilated. The two retreated at the same time. Qin Feiyong's face turned pale. A stream of blood rushed to his throat, but he swallowed it back down. The purple gold dragon blood must not be exposed. And the madman naturally didn't need to hide it. Wisps of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. "I really didn't misjudge you. You are a powerhouse worthy of a battle." The madman wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. The boiling battle intent became even more terrifying. Thank you for the compliment. Qin Feiyong smiled. But in his eyes there was a bright light. This battle couldn't be in a stalemate. He had to end it quickly. Otherwise, with the madman's strength, he would definitely be injured. Clang! One after another, sword shadows appeared out of nowhere. Guoyuan sword technique. A total of 70 sword shadows, sharp enough to tear the world apart. Without any hesitation, Qin Feiyong waved his hand and the 70 sword shadows slashed towards the madman. Divine technique? The madman paused for a moment. Then his face was filled with disdain. A mere low-grade divine technique can't hurt me. He didn't even activate his divine technique, and directly took a step forward. His face was filled with confidence. Boom! Madman punched out with a powerful aura, instantly shattering a large portion of the 70 sword shadows. Actually, Qin Feiyong also knew that low-grade divine techniques couldn't pose a threat to the madman, because the madman's body was as strong as his. With the strength of their bodies, they could even crush middle-grade divine artifacts. And the grade of divine artifacts and divine techniques corresponded. Low grade against low grade, middle grade against middle grade, high grade against high grade, perfect grade against supreme grade. So even if someone of the same level used a middle grade divine technique, they couldn't hurt them. Even if it was a high grade divine technique or high grade divine artifact, they could still fight with their bodies. Knowing that it wouldn't work but still doing this, it wasn't that Qin Feiyong was stupid, he had a purpose. Although the madman seemed simple-minded, as a battle maniac, he had more battle experience than anyone else. For people like this, as long as they entered a battle state, whether it was their perception or their senses, they would all be focused. In short, on the surface he seemed careless, but in reality he was always on guard. So, Qin Feiyong wanted to make the madman careless and slowly underestimate him. As long as the madman was careless, he would quickly defeat him. In just a few blinks of an eye, the 70 sword shadows were all shattered. Qin Feiyong's blood boiled. Purple gold dragon blood rose to his throat several times, but he swallowed it back down. Boom! He raised his arm again, his index finger pointing in the air. An invisible force burst out. Void returning art. The current void returning art had transformed into a middle-grade divine technique. If it was in Great Qin or Forgotten Continent, a middle-grade divine technique would definitely be a treasure. But here it wasn't anything. Especially in front of the madman. He could destroy it with a wave of his hand. You don't know my body and strength, this level of divine technique is useless against me. Can you be a bit more serious? The madman said angrily. He thought that Qin Feiyong was deliberately playing with him. Qin Feiyong turned a deaf ear to him and once again conjured the sun and moon eclipse. Still a middle-grade divine technique? The madman was furious. He leaped forward and instantly shattered it with a punch. He stared at Qin Feiyong and said gloomily, "If you continue like this, I will be angry." Literature Museum. Chapter 1999. I'm just afraid that you won't get angry. Qin Feiyong snickered secretly. The void returning art, Guoyuan sword art, and eclipse moon were once again evolved. Enough. It's really enough. The madman roared again and again like a demon god, his black hair fluttering in the wind. He shattered the Guoyuan sword art with a punch, shattered the eclipse moon with a palm, and then smashed the void returning art with a head-on collision. The three great divine arts were instantly disintegrated. This kind of strength was truly terrifying. Swish. Following closely, the madman took a step forward, his entire body erupting with a shocking killing intent as he said, "Since you only have this little ability, then there's no point in keeping you alive. Now is the time." Qin Feiyong's eyes flickered as he activated the return art, directly disappearing from the madman's line of sight. And the madman was startled. Then he felt a fatal sense of danger behind him. At this moment Qin Feiyong was standing behind the madman, a wisp of blood-red light shooting out from his fingertips. The madman's hair stood on end. Over the years he had fought with countless people, been injured and lost his life. Could be said, he had crawled out from death. But this sense of danger was something he had never felt before. It was as if there was a death god standing behind him, waving a sickle about to chop off his head. Even Even when he fought with Feng Zihan, the number one on the heaven list, for 3 days and 3 nights, he did not have this kind of feeling. The blood-red light was like a flash in the pan, instantly shattering the madman's flesh and blood, heading straight for his qi. The outcome has been decided, Qin Feiyang muttered, a smile creeping onto his face. However, at this moment, a golden light suddenly appeared on the madman's body. The blood-red light that was about to enter his qi was actually blocked by the golden light. The smile on Qin Feiyang's face suddenly froze, his eyes filled with disbelief. Boom! Immediately after, a mighty divine might like a volcano rushed out from the madman's body. That wisp of blood-red light was actually shattered. Puff! The bloody light shattered. Qin Feiyang could no longer hold it in. A mouthful of blood gushed out from his throat and directly sprayed onto the madman's back. Oh no! Qin Feiyang's expression changed. The aura of dragon blood? Although the madman's back was facing Qin Feiyang, he could feel the aura of the purple gold dragon blood the moment it appeared. He abruptly turned around and looked at Qin Feiyang. There was still a trace of purple gold blood at the corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth. He then touched the clothes on his back and lowered his head to look at the purple gold dragon blood in his hand. His eyes were filled with shock. Who? Looking at the madman's expression, Qin Feiyang let out a long breath. The nervousness in his heart disappeared. It wasn't because the madman didn't recognize the purple gold dragon blood. The reason for that was because he had already decided to kill that man. Since they were all going to die, what was there to be nervous about? This is purple gold dragon blood. The madman's eyes trembled as he raised his head and stared at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang said indifferently, "Now you know why I admitted defeat before." The madman said, "You were afraid that if we really fought, your purple gold dragon blood would be exposed." Yes. Just now, I kept using low-tier and mid-tier techniques to deliberately anger you and make you careless. In the end I succeeded. But what I didn't expect was that you actually had the ability to block my kill formula. Qin Feiyang said regretfully. Kill formula? The madman raised his eyebrows. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, at this time, there is no need to ask this. Looking at the smile on Qin Feiyang's face, the madman inexplicably felt a chill in his heart. There is indeed no need. But I want to know, who are you to Qin Batian? The madman said solemnly. Qin Feiyang said, if I say that I don't know him, or that my original body is a purple gold dragon, you will definitely not believe me. Nonsense. The madman sneered. Qin Feiyang said, alright, I admit that Qin Batian is my ancestor. What? Ancestor? Then why are you called Jiang Haotian? The madman was shocked. Qin Feiyang said with a smile, isn't it obvious? The madman's pupils shrank as he asked, what is your real name? Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang said. Qin Feiyang, the madman murmured and suddenly laughed. I didn't expect that Qin Batian actually has a descendant. Today, if I want to leave Turtle King Island alive, I'm afraid it won't be easy. You are indeed a smart person. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Huh, then let's give it a try. Let's see if you have the ability or not. The madman took a step forward. His divine aura was vast and shook all directions. However, his cultivation base didn't change at all. It was still suppressed to the level of a war god. Qin Feiyang also took a step forward. The power of the divine dragon surged out. The divine dragon seal instantly appeared. Its terrifying divine aura shook the heavens. Since the purple gold dragon blood had been exposed, there was naturally no need to hide anything else. The power of the divine dragon, I'm really envious. The madman sighed. But his eyes became sharper and sharper. Boom! Accompanied by a boom, blood-colored divine power surged out like a tide. A palm-sized blood-colored square seal appeared in the sky. It was surging with blood energy and a murderous aura. Let's see if your divine dragon seal is stronger, or my blood demon seal is stronger. As the madman's voice fell, the blood-colored square seal expanded in the wind. In an instant it was like a mountain, carrying an unparalleled destructive power as it blasted towards the divine dragon seal. This aura, Qin Feiyang's eyes trembled slightly. The so-called blood demon seal's aura was actually stronger than the divine dragon seal. Could it be a peak-level divine technique? Not daring to be careless, The power of the divine dragon surged. The divine dragon seal also quickly expanded to thousands of feet. It was no different from the blood demon seal. In a trance, there seemed to be a dragon roar that shook the sky. The two square seals collided and shattered in the void at the same time. Blood light and purple gold divine light illuminated half the sky. Puff! And at the same time, the two retreated several feet. Blood flowed from the corners of their mouths. It's indeed a peak-level divine technique, Qin Feiyang muttered. Although the divine dragon seal and the blood demon seal appeared to be equally matched, it should be known that Qin Feiyang's divine dragon seal was innately stronger than other divine powers. A divine technique evolved from the divine dragon power was naturally stronger than other perfect divine techniques. In other words, if the blood devil seal was a perfect deity formula, then the divine dragon seal should have had the upper hand and not the current situation where both jade and common stone were destroyed. The power of the purple gold divine dragon is indeed worthy of its reputation. Frenzy's fighting spirit rose. Roar of the blood demon. With a roar, blood-colored divine power soared into the sky. A figure shrouded in blood mist appeared in the sky. Roar! That figure was tens of thousands of feet tall. It stepped on the void and had a blood-red crown on its head. It was also wearing blood-red armor. That monstrous evil aura surged in all directions. From afar, it really looked like a terrifying blood demon had returned. The blood devil raised his head and roared. A blood-colored wave rolled out and pounced towards Qin Feiyang from all directions. Qin Feiyang's eyes widened. That blood-colored wave was not formed by divine power, but a sound wave. A terrifying aura that could destroy heaven and earth. It made one tremble in fear. He was more and more surprised by the strength displayed by Frenzy. He did not dare to be careless. With a wave of his hand, the purple gold divine dragon appeared out of thin air and let out a deafening dragon roar. Waves after waves of formless sound waves blasted out in a mighty manner. Boom! The two sound waves crazily collided in the sky. The void within a radius of hundreds of thousands of miles shattered. The island below was even more fragmented and in a complete mess. In the end, the two divine techniques ended in a draw. Unbelievable! A mere perfect battle technique can actually be on par with a peak divine technique. This is the power of the purple gold divine dragon? Frenzy murmured as his body trembled. This was not fear. It was excitement. The blood in his body was boiling. This was the opponent he wanted. What identity the other party had was not important to him at all. As long as he could fight with him happily, it was fine. As expected of a battle maniac, Qin Feiyang shook his head. To be honest, he admired this person. But there was no other way. Even if he admired him, he had to kill him. Who told this person to know something that he should not know? Clang! Boom! With a thought, the emperor statue appeared in the sky. The mighty emperor aura instantly shrouded all directions. Qin Batian. Frenzy looked at the emperor statue with bright eyes. Qin Feiyang was taken aback and hurriedly said, "You've seen my ancestor? If you win, I'll tell you." Frenzy laughed. Blood-colored divine power roared and the blood demon from before appeared again. But there was a halberd in the blood demon's hand. That halberd was also like blood, surging with a murderous aura. Why do I feel that this person's divine technique is similar to the divine dragon technique and the fire phoenix technique? Qin Feiyang frowned. The first blood-colored square seal, then the roar of the blood demon, and now this move, they all had the same effect as the divine dragon technique and the fire phoenix technique. Before he could think about it, the blood demon had already charged over. With every step he took, heaven and earth trembled. He was like a peerless demon king with a shocking aura. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed coldly. The emperor statue also took a step forward. The broken sword exuded an apocalyptic aura as it slashed over. Clang! The broken sword and halberd met in the void, creating an earth-shattering sound. At the same time, the dazzling flames were like fireworks in the sky. The emperor statue against the blood demon. The broken sword against the halberd. This was a marvelous battle. The two colossal figures continued to clash and collide, causing the sky to darken and the earth to dim. Let's not be idle. Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and waved his hand. Killing intent immediately erupted. A blood-colored light streaked across the sky like lightning and swept towards Frenzy's Qi Si. Yes. That's the way it should be. Frenzy laughed. The golden light in his body surged again and blasted towards the blood-colored light. Boom! The blood-colored light was blocked again. And after a moment of stalemate, the light shattered. What the hell is this? Qin Feiyong raised his eyebrows. Although the blood-colored light was only formed by a wisp of killing intent and didn't even have a third of the power of the kill character art, it could even seriously injure a half-step divine lord. And according to his estimation, the power of this wisp of killing intent was comparable to a legendary divine technique. But this frenzy actually shattered the killing intent twice. Wait, could it be that he still has a legendary divine technique? Chapter 2000. Just as Qin Feiyong was bewildered, Madman's body was covered in blood light and gradually formed a set of blood armor on his body. An even more terrifying murderous aura was emitted from his body. Qin Feiyong was startled and quickly recovered. When he saw Madman at this moment, he was furious. Don't panic, this is not a divine artifact. Although I am belligerent and disgusting, I am still a man of my word. If I say I won't use a divine artifact, then I won't use it. Madman grinned. Not a divine artifact. Qin Feiyong was surprised. Could it be the same as his battle word art, a divine art? Boom! Above. Suddenly there was a deafening noise. Both of their bodies shook and spat out a mouthful of blood at the same time. Then they looked up at the sky at the same time and saw that the blood demon and emperor statue had been torn apart and were dissipating. It's a draw again. Qin Feiyong frowned. Madman retracted his gaze and laughed. Come on, the real battle has only just begun. After that, he took a step towards Qin Feiyong. The blood armor on his body was covered in blood light. His hair and eyes were dyed red. He was a living blood demon. Qin Feiyong looked up at the sky with some hesitation. Don't worry. The Sky Dragon Sea is a very special place. Those old things in Nine Heaven Palace can't see the scene here. So just make your move. Madman said. I see. Qin Feiyong nodded and then smiled. As long as the big shots of Nine Heaven Palace couldn't see the scene here, then there was nothing to worry about. Boom! At this moment, a shocking battle intent roared out from his body like a volcano. A set of blood armor also appeared on his body. It was the transformation of the battle word art. Madman was stunned. Don't worry. I, Qin Feiyong, am also a man of my word. If I say I won't use a divine artifact, then I won't use it. Qin Feiyong took a step forward, his black hair fluttering in the wind. With surging battle intent, he threw a punch. Interesting. Madman laughed and punched out without dodging. Bang! The two fists collided like lightning, destroying everything in their path. Puff! The madman spat out a mouthful of blood and smashed into the ground like a cannonball. What? So strong? Madman was rather shocked. Qin Feiyong was not surprised at all. Like a god of war, he stood proudly in the void, his aura shaking the clouds. The battle symbol art was a heaven-defying divine art. Once he put on this armor, it was equivalent to activating the battle formula. As for the mad scientist's blood-red armor, according to his observation, it was only formed from a pinnacle deity art, so its defense was naturally inferior to the battle symbol art. After all, the armor formed by the battle formula could block 90% of the attack power. 90%, what kind of concept was that? In other words, after wearing this armor, Qin Feiyong would only take 10% of the damage. If the madman hadn't suppressed his cultivation, that 10% of the damage would have caused Qin Feiyong serious injuries. But it was a pity. The madman had suppressed his cultivation to the same level as him. Therefore, with the madman's current strength, it was like scratching an itch on his body. It was not worth mentioning at all. So, the madman rushed out from the ground and stood in front of Qin Feiyong. Staring at the armor on Qin Feiyong, his eyes were filled with shock. Take out all your tricks. Otherwise, you will never be able to break through the defense of this armor. Qin Feiyong said. What kind of joke is this? The madman was instantly enraged. Blood-red divine power surged out and crazily pounced at Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong stood in the void, motionless. Boom! The divine power quickly drowned him. But after a while, there was not a single injury on his body. The madman was dumbfounded. Blood demon seal. Blood demon roar. Following his low roar, the three divine arts instantly swept through the air, destroying everything in their path. The seal, the sound wave, and the halberd bombarded Qin Feiyong one after another. However, despite suffering such a terrifying bombardment, the armor on his body did not have a single trace of damage, and he himself was not injured at all. Even his breathing was not messed up. How is this possible? Your armor, what level of god art is it? The madman asked with a dazed expression. A mere set of armor was able to block all of his attacks. How was he going to fight? That is not important. Qin Feiyong shook his head. Haha. To be honest, I am a bit regretful now. Why did I suppress my cultivation? But then again, it is more interesting to defeat you like this. The madman laughed. Is that so? The corner of Qin Feiyong's mouth lifted as the blood-red armor dissipated. What do you mean? Are you looking down on me? The madman frowned and said angrily. It is indeed a bit interesting. Qin Feiyong nodded his head. Bastard, immediately put on that armor for me. The madman roared. If you want me to activate the armor again, let's see if you have the ability. Qin Feiyong said indifferently. Finished. He waved his hands, and the Guan sword art, void returning art, eclipse moon, and other god arts appeared one by one. Fuck. Qin Feiyong, you are too much. The madman rushed towards Qin Feiyong with monstrous anger. Not only did he put away the armor, but he also evolved these low and middle tier god arts. This was simply a humiliation to him. Qin Feiyong turned a deaf ear. With a wave of his hand, the various deity arts covered the sky as they shot toward the madman. Shatter for me. Madman rushed forward with a ferocious aura. It was a completely overwhelming suppression. But for this, Qin Feiyong did not have the slightest reaction. Divine Dragon Art and Fire Phoenix Art also appeared one after another. What? It's actually the Fire Phoenix Art. The madman was stunned. This time Qin Feiyong could not remain calm. How did the madman know about the Fire Phoenix Art? Fire Phoenix Art, Lu Zhengyang's self-created god art. It is almost on par with the first three moves of the Divine Dragon Art. Are you a descendant of Qin Batian or Lu Zhengyang? The madman shouted. You even know this? Qin Feiyong's heart was in a mess. This madman actually knew so much? Could it be that he also knew the whereabouts of his ancestors? No, this person could not be killed. Even if he had to kill him, he had to think of a way to control him and read his memories. You want to know? Okay, I will tell you. They are all my ancestors. Qin Feiyong said. The madman was stunned. After reacting, he pondered for a moment and asked very seriously, You are a hybrid? You are the hybrid. Your whole family is a hybrid. Qin Feiyong was instantly enraged. All the god arts rushed forward and directly sent the madman flying. The madman vomited blood. The armor on his body was also shattered. Blood flowed out from the broken armor. After all this time he had the Divine Dragon Art. The power of God Force coupled with the perfect Divine Dragon Art was comparable to a pinnacle god art. Bastard, I am also angry. The madman roared. Humph! Qin Feiyong coldly snorted and rushed forward like lightning. A bloody battle more terrifying than the previous one began. Gradually the god of life faded away. Both of them were covered in blood, but their aura and fighting spirit were becoming more and more terrifying. However, there was a doubt that had been lingering in their hearts. The doubt in the madman's heart was that Qin Feiyong clearly had stronger means, but why didn't he use them? Why did he keep using these god arts that could not defeat him? Qin Feiyong's suspicions were similar as well. The strength that the madman had displayed so far could only be considered average. With just this bit of strength, it was impossible for the disciples of Nine Heavens Palace to be so afraid of him. And the upper echelons of Nine Heavens Palace would not allow him to run amok in Nine Heavens Palace. Therefore there was no doubt. This madman must still be hiding some trump cards? For example, the golden light that shattered the blood-red color was a terrifying trump card. In other words, right now the madman was only testing his strength. He had not shown his true ability. Therefore what made him puzzled was, what was the madman's true method? Although both of them had not shown their true strength, the battle was incomparably intense. After all, when one's cultivation reached this level, no matter how weak they They were not comparable to those false gods or combat emperors. Time quietly passed. In the sky above the island, the two figures could no longer be seen. Only the rumbling sounds of collision could be heard, echoing in all directions. An hour had passed since the battle began. The madman was still testing Qin Feiyang's strength. But Qin Feiyang had already thrown away all his doubts and was wholeheartedly immersed in the battle. There was even a smile gradually appearing on his face. It gave others the feeling that he was enjoying it. Actually, he was enjoying it, because only by enjoying the battle could he seek a breakthrough in the battle. Yes, this was his plan. Raise the level of the various god techniques. For example, Guiyuan sword technique, void end technique, these god techniques were still useful in Great Qin and Forgotten Continent. But in the ancient world, they were completely useless. Although the six-word divine technique was already enough for him to establish a foothold in the ancient world, he could not rely on the six-word divine technique for everything. Therefore, it was necessary to raise the level of the various god techniques. Especially the divine dragon technique and fire phoenix technique, they had to be raised to the peak level, or even the legendary level. Rumble. The battle had already reached its climax. The various god techniques were all evolved to the extreme by Qin Feiyang. Although the madman did not know what Qin Feiyang wanted to do, his brows gradually furrowed. Because Qin Feiyang's aura was becoming more and more shocking. Moreover, it was gradually emitting a sense of oppression. This sense of oppression went straight into the heart, oppressing the soul. And this sense of oppression seemed to be growing, becoming stronger and stronger as time passed. Especially the smile on Qin Feiyang's face, which was getting brighter and brighter. This made the madman start to feel uneasy. Chirp! Suddenly, accompanied by a high-pitched phoenix cry, the fire phoenix 4 styles instantly appeared out of thin air, and the divine power it emitted gave the madman a fright. It was actually a level stronger than before. Wait, could it be that this guy? The madman's body trembled as he stared at the fire phoenix 4 styles. His eyes quickly surged with anger as he roared. So this is your goal, to use me to comprehend in battle and raise the level of the god techniques. However, Qin Feiyang did not seem to hear it, nor did he look at the madman. He even seemed to have forgotten that he was fighting with the madman. Apart from the fire phoenix technique, he also quickly evolved the divine dragon technique and other god techniques. And all of this seemed to be his instincts, and he did not deliberately evolve these god techniques. Not only that, those on the 9 Heavens Palace's Earth ranking were capable of doing the same as well. But usually, the most it could do was evolve the lower, middle, and upper grades to perfection. In other words, a perfect deity incantation was already the limit. As for raising a perfect deity art to a pinnacle deity art, in the entire Empyrean Palace, only the monstrous geniuses on the heaven ranking could do it. In other words, this person's talent was already sufficient to contend with those monstrous geniuses on the heaven roll. It was also at this moment, Qin Feiyang finally looked at the madman and smiled. Thank you for fighting with me for so long. These deity arts are my thanks to you. As his voice fell, Qin Feiyang and an incarnation waved their hands at the same time, and the sky full of deity arts suddenly turned into a torrent, majestically charging towards the madman. The madman's expression changed. 1,000 incarnations, just a perfect deity art was already enough to make one's soul tremble. Not to mention that this divine dragon art was a peak-grade deity art. He definitely couldn't take it head-on. In the nick of time, shwa, the madman took a step forward, and his body rapidly expanded several times, instantly disappearing from Qin Feiyang's line of sight. And Qin Feiyang was surprised. Although the speed displayed by the madman couldn't be compared to the attainment art, it was still faster than a peak-grade support deity art. In other words, it was very likely that the madman was using a legendary support-type divine art right now. This guy really can't be underestimated, Qin Feiyang muttered. If there was a legendary support deity art, then there might also be a legendary killing deity art. However, even so, as long as the madman kept suppressing his cultivation, then there would be no suspense in this battle. Shwa! Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the 1,000 incarnations simultaneously stepped on the attainment art, crossing the void. Without waiting for the madman to recover, they once again surrounded the madman. Damn! This speed! The madman's speed surprised Qin Feiyong, and Qin Feiyong's speed surprised the madman even more. Kill! Qin Feiyong shouted. The 1,000 incarnations killing intent immediately soared into the sky. Divine Dragon Seal, Divine Dragon Roar, shook the sky, destroying all directions. So many peak-grade deity arts, I'm afraid even if I use all my means I still won't be able to block them. Unless I no longer suppress my cultivation. The madman looked around, his eyes flashing. But if he went back on his words he would lose face. The most important thing was, once he let go of his cultivation it was equivalent to admitting defeat. What should he do? Boom! Suddenly, a powerful aura rolled over from the distance. The madman was startled. He looked into the distance and hurriedly said to Qin Feiyong, quickly put away the divine dragon art and go hide. Qin Feiyong also sensed the aura. It was extremely terrifying, far surpassing the war god. Qin Feiyong immediately raised his eyebrows. Didn't you say that without your permission, no one dares to step onto Turtle King Island? The madman's expression was awkward. That woman is an exception. You should quickly retreat. Otherwise, if she sees the purple gold dragon blood, you won't be able to survive even if you have 10 lives. Qin Feiyong's eyes were gloomy. The madman said, don't worry, I will help you keep your identity a secret. Qin Feiyong looked deeply at the madman before dispersing his incarnation and entering the black tortoise world. The deity arts that filled the sky also dissipated. I used to be annoyed by that woman, but this time I really have to thank her. She came at the right time. Otherwise it would have been embarrassing. The madman chuckled and with a wave of his hand, his divine power surged to the ground below. The purple gold dragon blood on the ground was instantly annihilated. The remaining dragon aura in the void was also quickly erased. Soon, a woman in a light purple dress broke through the air. She was tall, her skin was white, her hair fluttered in the wind and her facial features were exquisite. She could be said to be a peerless beauty. However, her entire body emitted an ice-cold aura. Her face was also extremely cold, as if she was an ice fairy that kept everyone 1,000 miles away. Feng Zihan, what are you doing here? Didn't I say that Turtle King Island is my territory and no one is allowed to enter? The madman looked at the woman with dissatisfaction. However, Feng Zihan directly ignored him and looked around, asking, where's Zhang Haotian? What Zhang Haotian? The madman was suspicious. Don't play dumb. I received news earlier that you brought Zhang Haotian into Turtle King Island. Not long ago, when I came to Turtle King Island, I heard from the disciples gathered outside that you and Zhang Haotian had already started fighting. And at that time I did feel the fluctuations of a battle. Feng Zihan looked at him coldly. You really talk too much. A trace of hostility flashed across the madman's face as he laughed dryly. Zhang Haotian was already defeated by me and ran away with his tail between his legs. Is that so? Then why didn't I see him on the way here? Feng Zihan said. I say, what do you mean? Am I your prisoner? Such an interrogative tone? Also, what does my sparring with Zhang Haotian have to do with you? Why are you so nosy? The madman said impatiently. Feng Zihan's eyes were filled with anger, but he quickly suppressed it and said, I just came to see what kind of person is qualified for you to invite into Turtle King Island. Whether others are qualified or not is up to me, not you. If there's nothing else, then leave. Don't bother me. The madman waved his hand as if he didn't like this woman. You. Chapter 2002. Madman glanced at Qin Feiyong and said, let's end today's sparring here, let's go back. And here? Qin Feiyong was taken aback. He grabbed Madman and said, this won't do. Why not? Today we've met our match. It's a draw. Madman said. Evenly matched? Doesn't your conscience hurt when you say that? Qin Feiyong said angrily. 3,000 incarnations evolved to the small success stage. When Feng Zihan finally came, he clearly noticed that Madman was at a loss. But now, he actually had the audacity to say that they were evenly matched and the victor could not be determined. Wasn't this clearly trying to act shamelessly? Hearing Qin Feiyong's words, Madman's expression was quite awkward. This time he was really careless. Why did he suppress his cultivation? Otherwise, he wouldn't have been caught by this person. Suddenly, his eyes turned and he secretly laughed. If you don't want your identity to be exposed, I can fight with you again. Identity exposed? What do you mean? Qin Feiyong was surprised. I know that woman Feng Zihan very well. She definitely hasn't really left. She should be hiding somewhere and monitoring us. Madman said. Qin Feiyong was shocked and quickly released his divine sense. It's useless. Feng Zihan's spatial divine item is embedded with the hidden soul stone. Madman said indifferently. Qin Feiyong's eyes flickered. He didn't know if Madman was telling the truth or not. You don't believe me? Okay, I'll call her out. Madman laughed mockingly, looking at the surrounding void. He said angrily, damn woman, where are you hiding? Shua. A woman in a light purple dress suddenly appeared in the void not far away. She's really here. Qin Feiyong's heart trembled. Madman stared at Feng Zihan and coldly snorted. I knew you wouldn't leave so easily. Feng Zihan coldly glanced at the madman before looking at Qin Feiyong. That cold gaze caused Qin Feiyong to feel a chill in his heart. Qin Feiyong cupped his hands and smiled. So it's senior sister Feng Zihan. It's an honor to meet you at last. Feng Zihan said. I heard you say that frenzy lost to you? This? Qin Feiyong didn't know how to answer. Bitch, you're humiliating me, do you know that? I am Nine Heavens Palace's fiercest. How could I lose to a rookie who just entered Nine Heavens Palace and is even an outer disciple? Madman said angrily. Shut up. Feng Zihan glared at the madman. He looked at Qin Feiyong and said, Zhang Haotian, I have long heard of your great name. Why don't we spar and see if you have the qualifications to step onto Turtle King Island? Ugh. Qin Feiyong was stunned. The first few words were just pleasantries. The last sentence was the main point. Did he have the qualifications to step onto Turtle King Island? If this wasn't jealousy, then what was? It seemed that this woman really liked the madman. It was a pity that the madman, who was a battle maniac, couldn't understand. Feng Zihan's gaze was aggressive. Qin Feiyong shook his head and smiled. As senior brother madman said, I'm just an outer disciple. How would I dare to spar with senior sister Feng, who is number 1 on the heaven leaderboard? Don't be so modest. I'll also suppress my cultivation to the level of war god like madman. After Feng Zihan finished speaking, she really suppressed her cultivation. And without any explanation, divine power surged out as she took a step towards Qin Feiyong. Qin Feiyong's eyes darkened. Was this woman jealous? Or did she want to take the opportunity to help Feng Zihan kill him? Shua. But suddenly, madman took a step in front of Qin Feiyong and said angrily, You stinking bitch, you're not done yet, are you? What did you say? Feng Zihan froze and stared angrily at madman. Lousy said you're a stinking bitch. Madman said. Bastard, I'm not done with you. Feng Zihan was enraged and turned to slap madman. Madman saw that the situation wasn't good. He grabbed Qin Feiyong and flew away like lightning. Stop! Feng Zihan shouted angrily and followed closely. Really troublesome. Brother Qin, let me tell you, in Nine Heaven Palace, Lousy isn't afraid of anyone. But I'm afraid of this woman. Madman was secretly annoyed. Why? Qin Feiyong was puzzled. This woman likes Lousy, but Lousy doesn't have any feelings for her. Actually, it's all Lousy's fault. I shouldn't have fought with her back then. Madman's face was filled with regret. Fighting with her and her liking you, this doesn't seem to have anything to do with it, right? Qin Feiyong was even more puzzled. Who said it's not related? That's when she started to like me. At that time we fought on this island for 3 days and 3 nights. We were almost exhausted. Just as the victor was about to be decided, a sea beast suddenly barged in. And it was extremely strong. If it was at its peak, whether it was me or her, we could easily deal with it. But at that time we didn't have much strength left. Seeing the sea beast charge at her first, I stepped forward to protect her. Don't misunderstand. I really don't have anything to do with her. It was completely out of a man's instinct. Madman thought. I won't misunderstand. But obviously this woman misunderstood. She thought that you protected her because you liked her. Qin Feiyong snickered. Isn't that the case? Later on, she came to find me every few days. It gave me a headache. Madman rubbed his forehead in annoyance. Qin Feiyong glanced at Feng Zihan behind him and snickered. I thought you didn't know that she likes you. Laozi isn't blind. Madman glared at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang shook his head in amusement and thought, let's not talk about Feng Zihan for now. In short, thank you for helping me keep it a secret. But you have to do what you promised me. After all, you have to keep your word. Wait. What did I promise you? Madman raised his eyebrows. Qin Feiyang suppressed his anger and said, you said that if you lost, you would help me do something unconditionally. Also, tell me about the situation between my ancestor and Lu Zhongyang. Did I say that? No, I don't remember. Madman shook his head and laughed. Are you really going to go back on your word? Do you believe that I won't spread the news that you lost to me? Veins popped out on Qin Feiyang's forehead. Madman said indifferently, but you have to admit that we didn't win. Moreover, I have something on you, so you can't threaten me. All right, let's get rid of Feng Zihan and change places. Then we'll fight again. Qin Feiyang gritted his teeth. Forget it, after being disturbed by that woman, I've already lost interest. Let's wait for the next time. Madman shook his head. Qin Feiyang was incomparably annoyed. His eyes turned and he suddenly sneered. I really didn't expect that you would be such a person. What kind of person am I? If you don't make it clear today, I won't let you off. Madman's tail was suddenly stepped on as he said angrily. Qin Feiyang sneered. Touch your conscience and tell me, if you don't release the suppression on your cultivation, can you beat me? Madman raised his eyebrows. Finally. He glared at Qin Feiyang angrily and said, fine, I admit defeat. I promise you I will help you do one thing. That's more like it. If you want to spar in the future, feel free to find me. Qin Feiyang secretly laughed. Don't. I can't afford to provoke trouble like you. Madman hurriedly said. I'm trouble like that? What do you mean? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. What I mean is, if I had known that you were the descendant of Qin Badian, I would never have asked you to spar. I'm just looking for trouble. Madman shook his head and sighed, his face full of regret. It was as if in his eyes, Qin Feiyang was a god of plague. What the hell is going on? Qin Feiyang frowned. Madman's words had a hidden meaning. Madman glanced at Feng Zihan behind him and said, let me tell you this, if your identity is exposed, you will be finished on the spot. The entire North region will not tolerate you. Qin Feiyang's heart trembled. Could it be that his worries were true? His ancestor and Nine Heaven Palace had really turned against each other? It's not convenient for me to say the details. You can investigate it yourself. In the future, try not to find me. I don't want to be implicated by you. No. I have to move out of my current cave and take the initiative to keep a distance from you. Madman thought. The corner of Qin Feiyang's mouth twitched. Move out of the cave? Was there a need to be so exaggerated? A moment later, the two left Turtle King Island. Feng Zihan followed closely behind. Outside the island, there were no less than 300 to 400 people gathered. Madman glanced at those people and said angrily, who spread the news of me and Zhang Haoyan sparring here? Chapter 2003. Sir, this is a private matter between us and Zhang Haoyan. Please don't interfere. Moreover, we are in the Sky Dragon Sea and not Nine Heaven Palace. The scarred man looked at Madman and tried to maintain a pleasant tone. There is nothing wrong with what you said. The Sky Dragon Sea is indeed not under the jurisdiction of Nine Heaven Palace. However, Zhang Haoyan is now a disciple of our Nine Heaven Palace. You coming to capture him is equivalent to going against our Nine Heaven Palace. Madman grinned and did not give the other party any face. Sir, this is a bit too much. We have been politely inviting him to Star River City. When did we say we wanted to capture him? The scarred man frowned. I'm too lazy to talk nonsense with you. Zhang Haoyan was brought out by me. I naturally have to bring him back alive. If you have nothing to do, then get lost. Don't block my way. Madman shouted. The four's eyes trembled and unwillingly retreated to the side. Let's go. Madman smiled proudly and swaggered past the four of them. Qin Feiyang glanced at the four and chased after Madman. But just as Qin Feiyang passed by the four, the scarred man's eyes flashed and he sent a palm toward Qin Feiyang. The other three were also filled with killing intent. Qin Feiyong had been paying attention to the four. The moment the four attacked, he immediately activated the walkward art and retreated far away. This speed. Seeing this, Feng Zihan's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. At the same time, Madman was also taken aback. He turned around and stared at the four with hostility. For early-stage divine lords dare to be presumptuous in front of me. Courting death. Boom! Before his voice faded, Madman's aura was fully released and a terrifying blood wave rolled toward the four. No, the scarred man and the other three had a change of expression. But it was too late. The blood wave drowned them. The four screamed as their divine bodies were torn apart in the void. Flesh and blood splattered everywhere. Qin Feiyong was dumbfounded by what he saw. Four early-stage divine lords were killed in an instant. This is Madman's true strength? Terrifying. It was too terrifying. If the madman hadn't suppressed his cultivation, he would have had to activate his slaughter domain to have a chance. How is it? Are you scared, silly? Madman looked at Qin Feiyong proudly. Qin Feiyong swallowed his saliva and stepped forward with a frown. Aren't these people a little too arrogant? They clearly know that I am a disciple of Nine Heavens Palace, yet they still dare to attack me? What's wrong with that? As long as it's not within the Nine Heavens Palace, those old bastards above us won't care. Moreover, you're only an outer court disciple. Who would make such a big fuss for you? Madman looked at Qin Feiyong with a face full of ridicule. Qin Feiyong smiled helplessly and cupped his hands. Thank you. Madman waved his hand. Speaking of which, with your strength, shouldn't you stay in the inner sect? Why do you want to stay in the outer sect? Could it be that it's really as the rumors say, that you were expelled to the outer court because you were too mischievous? Qin Feiyong was suspicious. Expelled to the outer court? What a joke. If I'm not willing, do they have the ability to do so? I can kill my way into the inner sect in minutes. I can only say that it's lonely at the top. Madman shook his head and sighed. Show off. Qin Feiyong's eyes were filled with disdain. He had never seen someone who could show off so much. Madman smiled and glanced at Feng Zihan. Actually, it's related to this woman. Huh. Qin Feiyong was stunned. Didn't I just say that this woman would come to find me every few days? I had a headache, so I hid in the outer court. Madman sighed. Qin Feiyong was stunned. So this is the reason why you're in the outer court? Yes. This woman, although she likes me, she cares about her face. She can't put it down and follow me to the outer court. So I just want to hide in peace. Madman said helplessly. So that's the case. Qin Feiyong suddenly understood. To be able to make Madman afraid to this extent, how difficult was this woman Feng Zihan? Feng Zihan glanced at the four dead men before looking up at Madman. He asked, Madman, did you and Zhang Haotian know each other before? No. Madman shook his head. Then why are you helping him? Feng Zihan raised his brows. Can't I have fate with him? Madman snorted and swept up Qin Feiyong and left without looking back. Saying that you have fate with a man, don't you feel disgusted? Feng Zihan said angrily. It's none of your business. I like men. Madman roared. Bastard, bastard. Feng Zihan stamped his foot in anger. Divine items shot out in all directions like a waterfall, causing the sea to churn for hundreds of thousands of kilometers. Countless sea beasts were affected and cried out miserably. What a terrifying woman. Qin Feiyong mumbled. Once she was angry, the sea would shake. If she was provoked, wouldn't she pierce through the sky? However, Madman's words made him more concerned. Like men? He turned his head to look at Madman and goosebumps appeared all over his body. What's with that look? Madman rolled his eyes at Qin Feiyong and transmitted his voice. I have heard about the grudge between you and Feng Zijuan. Feng Yuan and Feng Wenhai aren't simple characters. You have to be careful. Qin Feiyong sighed. They have already begun to deal with me. So fast? Madman was surprised. Qin Feiyong said, do you know why the city lord of Star River City sent people to find me? Is it related to Feng Yuan and Feng Wenhai? Madman asked. The city lord has a son called Nye Yun. This person was bribed by Feng Yuan and wanted to get rid of me during the assessment. But in the end I killed him instead. There's also the matter of slandering Nine Heavens Palace. Zhao Tailai said in a deep voice. It's not just a matter, it's a matter of life and death. Qin Feiyong's eyes darkened, and he said, tell me. Here's what happened. Didn't we go to find Shangguan Qiu as you asked? But she recognized us at a glance. We're your subordinates. Zhao Tailai said. What? How is that possible? Qin Feiyong's face was blank. Tang Hai said. What old Zhao said is true. We didn't even have a chance to speak before we were directly kicked out. Shangguan Qiu also threatened that we're not allowed to enter the treasure pavilion again. How dare she? Even if you're my people, she shouldn't have kicked you out. Qin Feiyong was quite angry. That's not the point. The point is, how did she know our identity? You know, we've never shown our faces in the ancient world. Tang Hai said. There's something fishy about this. Qin Feiyong thought for a while, and his eyes trembled slightly, and he said, could it be them? Who? The two of them were surprised. Mu Tianyang, Mu Qing. Now, only the two of them know of your existence in Sky Dragon City. Wait. Shangguan Qiu suddenly blocked me, and he didn't say a word about the Juku Yellow Dragon pill. And he knows you, this matter? Qin Feiyong frowned and suddenly understood, and his eyes shone with a fierce light, and he said, Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing are behind this. Tang Hai said. You mean Shangguan Qiu has already reached an agreement with Mu Tianyang? Yes. Disguise yourselves and go to the treasure pavilion. I think the treasure pavilion will auction the Juku Yellow Dragon pill in the next 2 days. Think of a way to get the alchemy fire and cauldron no matter what. Also, I want to know all the details about the city lord of Xinghe City. Qin Feiyong said in a low voice. Yes. The two of them responded respectfully, and the shadows quickly disappeared. Mu Tianyang, you're good stealing my business. Let's see who will have the last laugh. Qin Feiyong sneered, and left the Black Tortoise world, and opened an altar to return to the Ninth Heaven Palace. Chapter 2004. Nine Heaven Palace. Cave Mansion number 1000. Qin Dage, didn't you say that you would be back very late? Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyong, who hurriedly entered the cave mansion and asked in confusion. Qin Feiyong smiled. Something happened. Then what were you busy with? Fire Lotus was suspicious. Nothing. Qin Feiyong shook his head. Still hiding it from me. I already heard that you and Madman were sparring on an island. Fire Lotus rolled her eyes at him. Heard. Qin Feiyong was stunned. Right now the entire Nine Heavens Palace is abuzz with the news. Everyone is curious as to who won and who lost. Fire Lotus said. Qin Feiyong's mouth twitched. This was too fast. How was it? Fire Lotus's eyes were filled with curiosity. Qin Feiyong said. Madman is very strong. If he hadn't suppressed his cultivation, I definitely wouldn't have been able to beat him. So you're saying that you won? Fire Lotus said. It's not really my win. Because he has been testing my strength and didn't use his true means. If it wasn't for Feng Zihan coming to disturb the situation, we would probably still be fighting. Qin Feiyong said. Feng Zihan? Fire Lotus was stunned and said in surprise, that big sister of Gongzi's? Yes. This woman's strength can't be underestimated. Qin Feiyong sighed. Then did she do anything to you? Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyong with concern. She didn't. Although the battle with Madman this time didn't end well, I still gained a lot. Qin Feiyong smiled. What gains? Fire Lotus was curious. You'll be scared to death if I tell you. Guiyuan sword technique. I've already upgraded it to a mid-tier god technique. The Ruins of End incantation, Eclipse Moon, has also been upgraded to a high-tier divine incantation. The 3000 incarnations have also entered the initial stage. But all of this is nothing. The most important ones are still the Fire Phoenix technique and the Divine Dragon technique. The Fire Phoenix technique has been upgraded to a perfect deity technique. The Divine Dragon art has evolved to a pinnacle deity art. Qin Feiyong said with a smile. Even he couldn't help but feel excited. Huilian was also stunned when she heard this. All the major deity arts had been upgraded. Didn't this mean that Qin Feiyong's current strength was several times stronger than before? What a scary guy. Qin Feiyong sighed. However, my identity has also been exposed. What? Exposed? Who knows? Fire Lotus exclaimed. Only lunatics. However, what I don't understand is that he actually helped me keep it a secret. Qin Feiyang frowned. Regarding this matter, he could not understand it no matter how much he thought about it. Keep it a secret, Fire Lotus muttered, her eyes suddenly trembled and said in shock. He couldn't be lying to you, right? Lying to me? Qin Feiyang was startled. He said that he would help you keep it a secret, probably to make you careless, and then secretly inform the upper echelons of the Nine Heavens Palace, and then kill you off. Fire Lotus said in a deep voice. Could it be like this? Qin Feiyang frowned. Although he had just come into contact with the lunatic, it was not difficult to tell from his personality that he was not such a sinister person. However, one had to be wary of others, so it was better to be careful. Otherwise, when the time came, he would really be caught off guard and there would be nothing he could do. Stinking woman, what are you doing? Suddenly, an angry shout came from outside. The voice of a lunatic? Fire Lotus was startled and frowned. Who is he angry at this time? Stinking woman. I think only Feng Zihan can call me that. Qin Feiyang thought. Feng Zihan? What did she come to our Sword Peak for? Fire Lotus was surprised. Let's go. Let's go out and take a look. Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed, and he turned and walked outside. Fire Lotus also hurriedly followed. When the two of them walked out of the cave, the people from the other caves such as Gao Xiaoyi, Ma Guang, and the others had already run out. Everyone looked at the first cave abode above. Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus also looked up, and saw a woman in a light purple dress standing opposite the lunatic in front of the first cave abode. The two of them, one was as cold as ice, the other had a face full of anger. Who is she? Her aura is so strong. Someone muttered. Seeing that Feng Zihan did not speak for a long time, the lunatic became even angrier and shouted, I'm asking you, what are you doing here? Feng Zihan said indifferently, What do I want to do? There's no need to report to you. The lunatic was so angry that his face turned red. Fire Lotus said in a daze, Qin Dage, what's going on? I don't know. Qin Feiyang shook his head. At this moment, Feng Zihan turned and lowered his head to look at Qin Feiyang and the others. So beautiful, when they saw Feng Zihan's appearance, the hearts of the men present could not help but tremble. Feng Zihan said, From today onwards I will live in this Sword Peak, and I hope that everyone will take care of me in the future. What? She wants to move here. Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus looked at each other. The lunatic was also stunned, and when he came back to his senses, he immediately said, I don't agree. This Sword Peak is not yours. What right do you have to disagree? Feng Zihan said coldly, and directly turned and walked into the second cave abode. Seeing this, Ma Guang hurriedly said, Wait, that. Senior sister, the second cave abode is mine. But before his voice faded, accompanied by a gust of wind, a pile of daily necessities flew out from the second cave abode, and landed in front of Ma Guang in a mess. Just like that, I took it all. Ma Guang looked at the things on the ground, and then looked at the second cave abode, his face full of astonishment. Qin Feiyang stepped forward and patted Ma Guang on the shoulder, and said with a smile, Brother Ma, this is your honor. Honor? Ma Guang was taken aback, and turned to look at Qin Feiyang saying, Brother Jiang, in any case we are now friends, how can you make fun of me? Brother Jiang did not make fun of you. At this time, a hearty laugh sounded. Huai shook his head and leisurely walked out of the cave abode. Ma Guang glanced at Huai, and then looked at Qin Feiyang frowning. Two brothers, what is the meaning of this? The other disciples, including Gao Xiaoyi, also looked at Qin Feiyang and Huai suspiciously. Huai smiled mysteriously. Brother Ma, do you know her identity? Identity? Ma Guang was taken aback and shook his head. Her name is Feng Zihan, the number 1 on the heaven list. Do you know what it means to be number 1 on the heaven list? It means that she is the strongest among all the disciples of Nine Heavens Palace. Even some elders are not as good as her. Now tell me again, isn't it your honor to be number 1 on the heaven list living in the cave abode you lived in? Huai laughed. Number 1 on the heaven list. She is Feng Zihan. Ma Guang was dumbfounded. The rest of the people were also shocked to the extreme. Wait, Brother Huai, Brother Jiang, she is number 1 on the heaven list. Why did she come to our outer sect? Ma Guang looked at the two and asked. I don't know about this. Maybe she is tired of the inner sect life and wants to come to our outer sect to experience life. Hui shook his head. Experience life? Ma Guang and the others were speechless to the extreme. These big shots were really bored out of their minds. Madman glanced at the group of people and stared at Qin Feiyong and said, Qin Feiyong, no one knows about me and Feng Zihan, don't talk nonsense behind our backs. Don't worry. I will definitely keep my mouth shut. Qin Feiyong laughed secretly. In fact, he knew that Feng Zihan coming here must have something to do with Madman. Of course it might also have something to do with him. Really troublesome. Madman sighed and turned to enter the cave abode. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed and he said, Madman, wait. What? Madman didn't look back. Qin Feiyong asked secretly, where does the Vice Palace Master live? Vice Palace Master? Madman was slightly taken aback and said secretly, why are you asking about this? I want to check the history books of Nine Heavens Palace. Qin Feiyong replied, check the information of Qin Batian? Madman was secretly playing tricks. Qin Feiyong said helplessly, haven't you heard of the saying, see through but don't say it? Don't ask me this kind of thing, I won't tell you. Of course you can ask others, and I won't ask what you want to do. In short, don't look for me if there's nothing. Chapter 2005. First, you were schemed against by Changli. Then Madman came to spar with you. Now even Feng Zihan came to find you. Brother Jiang, so many things have happened on the first day of entering Nine Heavens Palace. How are you going to live in the future? Hui looked at Qin Feiyong sympathetically. Qin Feiyong said indifferently, don't gloat. If they want to deal with me, you won't be able to escape either. Hui shook his head with a bitter smile. I really regret colluding with you. Colluding with you? Brother Hui, do you know how to talk? Fire Lotus looked at him with dissatisfaction. Okay. I was wrong. Hui hurriedly apologized. He looked at Qin Feiyong curiously and asked, what was the result of your battle with Madman? That's not important. Qin Feiyong shook his head and asked suspiciously, why did you ask about Shangguan Fenglan's residence? Not important. Hui was slightly taken aback and smiled bitterly. It seems that you still don't know. Right now, all the disciples of Nine Heavens Palace are concerned about this problem. After all, your opponent is Madman. Let them be. Qin Feiyong smiled indifferently. Okay. Pretend I didn't ask. I went to ask about Shangguan Fenglan's residence. Of course it was for you. Hui said. For me? Qin Feiyong was taken aback. This was somewhat unexpected. Why did Shangguan Fenglan save you? Obviously, she wanted you to deal with Feng Wenhai. And with your personality, you definitely wouldn't be willing to be a chess piece. So, I thought that you would go and negotiate with her. So, while you were sparring with Madman, I went to ask about her residence. I also learned about Nine Heavens Palace's situation. Hui said. When Qin Feiyong heard these words, he looked calm on the surface, but he was extremely shocked in his heart. This person was too terrifying. Not only had he seen through Shangguan Fenglan's scheme, but he had also figured out what she was thinking. Fire Lotus asked Shangguan Fenglan, as the Lord of the Disciplinary Hall, should be staying in the Disciplinary Hall, right? If that's what you think, Fire Lotus, then you're too naive. According to my investigation, Shangguan Fenglan has been cultivating in seclusion all these years and has not asked about the matters of the Law Enforcement Hall. Feng Wenhai and Yin Hui are basically in charge of all the affairs of the Enforcement Hall. In other words, right now, the ones in charge of the family are actually Feng Wenhai and his wife. The people from the Law Enforcement Hall basically follow the lead of these two people. In other words, Shangguan Fenglan's position as Palace Master is only in name. If nothing unexpected happens, Feng Wenhai will definitely become the next Law Enforcement Hall Master. That is the reason why Shangguan Fenglan wanted to take care of Feng Wenhai. Hui laughed. Fire Lotus looked at Qin Feiyong and said, Brother, it's just as you guessed. Qin Feiyong smiled and asked Hui, then where is she staying now? In the depths of Nine Heavens Palace, Lotus Lake. Do you want to go? I can lead the way. Hui smiled. Let's go. Qin Feiyong pondered for a moment, then stood up and said to Hui, I really can't wait. Hui shook his head and smiled, then stood up and said, "But you're just an outer disciple. If you go find the law enforcement hall master, it will probably cause criticism and even cause people to guess. It's best to cover it up." Qin Feiyang's eyes flashed and he brought Huiyi to the Black Tortoise world. Then, he controlled the Black Tortoise world and flew out of the cave dwelling, towards the depths of Nine Heavens Palace. Huiyi looked around in surprise and said, "Brother Jiang, isn't this spatial divine item of yours a little too big?" "Spatial divine item?" Qin Feiyang was stunned and asked with a smile, "Isn't it good to be a little bigger?" "It's good to be a little bigger, but this is too outrageous. It looks like a small world. And there are so many living beings." Huiyi exclaimed. "Is that so?" Qin Feiyang smiled faintly, but he was secretly paying attention to Huiyi's expression. This person was getting more and more mysterious. He must not be careless. Not long after Qin Feiyang and Huiyi left, a black-clothed youth flew through the air like lightning and landed in front of cave dwelling number 1. He bowed and said, "Shirtai requests an audience with senior brother Madman." "What's the matter?" Madman's voice came from the cave dwelling. "Senior brother Feng Zijuan, let me ask you something. How was your battle with Zhang Haotian?" Shirtai asked. "Nonsense. He's just a little rookie. How can he be my opponent? If you dare to ask such a boring question again, I'll cripple you." Scram. Madman's angry voice sounded. Shirtai's gaze trembled as he carefully asked, "Then what about senior brother and Zhang Haotian?" Madman was silent for a moment before he teased. "Feng Zijuan wants to know if I have any relationship with Zhang Haotian? I wouldn't dare." Shirtai hurriedly shook his head. "I have nothing to do with him. You can do whatever you want, as long as you don't disturb me," Madman said. "Yes," Shirtai replied as a sharp light flashed in his eyes. He then turned around and landed below the sword peak. His expression immediately became overbearing as he said, "Zhang Haotian, get out here." Inside the cave dwelling, Hulian was taken aback. Then she frowned. Who was shouting and yelling? And from his tone, it seemed like he didn't come with good intentions. "Hurry up!" Shirtai shouted impatiently. Fire Lotus raised her eyebrows and walked out of the cave dwelling. She looked at Shirtai and cupped her hands. "I wonder why senior brother is looking for my brother? The person I want to see is Zhang Haotian, not you," Shirtai said with a face full of arrogance. "I'm sorry, my brother happened to have something to do and went out. Please come earlier next time." With that, Fire Lotus turned and entered the cave dwelling. Since the other party was so rude, there was naturally no need for her to be polite. "Stop right there." Shirtai raised his eyebrows and said angrily. Hulian didn't even want to pay attention to him and closed the stone door directly. But the moment before the stone door closed, Shirtai stepped out and rushed into the cave dwelling with a murderous aura. He immediately slapped Fire Lotus's face. Fire Lotus flipped in the air and fell to the ground. The mask on her face was also shattered. But because she fell down immediately, Shirtai did not see her face clearly. "Who do you think you are? How dare you show your face to me? Do you know who I am?" Shirtai's slap was not enough. He stepped forward and stepped on the back of Fire Lotus's head. Fire Lotus was about to get up when her face hit the ground with a bang. Her head was bleeding. "Then tell me, who are you?" Fire Lotus's face was pressed tightly to the ground. It was difficult for her to even speak. Her heart was filled with grievances. Shirtai said, "I'm Shirtai, an inner disciple, half-step divine lord. I'll remember it." Fire Lotus gritted her teeth and said, "From your tone it seems like you're not convinced." As expected, like brother like sister. A bunch of arrogant trash. "If it weren't for the rules of Empyrean Palace, I would kill you right now." Shirtai sneered and took out an envelope from his chest. He threw it on the ground and said, "Give it to your brother. I'll be waiting for you at the battlefield tomorrow morning." After he finished speaking, he turned around and left with a loud laugh. However, he did not notice that Fire Lotus slowly raised her head. Her blood-stained face was as cold as steel. His eyes were filled with the light of the god of death. After Shirtai left Sword Peak, Feng Zihan walked out of cave dwelling number 2. He looked at Shirtai's back and then lowered his head to look at cave dwelling number 1000. His eyes flashed with an inexplicable light. In the depths of Empyrean Palace, Under Huayi's guidance, after an hour of hurrying, the black tortoise world finally arrived above a lake. The lake was about half a mile wide. The lake water was as clear as a mirror and white mist lingered on its surface. Colorful lotuses were in full bloom. The lake was surrounded by green mountains and clear waters. Hundreds of flowers bloomed. It was a very elegant and quiet place. On the northern shore of the lake, there was an exquisite attic. It was richly ornamented and had an antique feel to it. At this moment, in front of the pavilion on the balcony by the lake, a woman in purple stood facing the wind, looking at the quiet lake. A cool breeze blew, her black hair fluttered and her dress fluttered. From afar, she looked like a woman from a painting, extremely stunning. Huayi looked through the painting entranced. Qin Feiyang raised his arm and waved it in front of Huayi's eyes. "What are you doing?" Huayi slapped Qin Feiyang's hand away. He glared at Qin Feiyang and continued to stare at the woman in purple. Qin Feiyang's face twitched. He said disdainfully, "You're drooling. It's none of your business." Huayi wiped the corner of his mouth and laughed. "When we were on the sky stairway, why didn't I notice that this woman was so stunning? No matter how stunning she is, it's not for you." Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes. "Why?" Huayi frowned. "Don't you know who she is? Is she a woman that an outer court disciple like you can get?" Qin Feiyang was speechless. "You're too vulgar. Love has nothing to do with status or poverty. As long as two people truly love each other, even if there is a difference between heaven and earth, they can still walk together. This is the power of love. Forget it, even if I tell you, you won't understand." Huayi impatiently waved his hand at Qin Feiyang. He stared at the woman in purple with shining eyes. "He's gone mad." Qin Feiyang shook his head. He controlled the black tortoise realm and flew over. Then, he dragged Huayi and appeared beside the woman. The woman in purple sensed the aura of the two and was slightly stunned. She turned her head and said in surprise, "It's you too." Huayi cupped his hands and said, "Miss, I am Huayi. Hua as in flames, E as in easy. I haven't married yet. I have no other relatives in my family, only a pair of deceased parents." The woman in purple looked at Huayi in astonishment. What kind of drama was this? Qin Feiyang was also stunned. He thought that this guy was just joking, but he didn't expect him to really do it. It had to be said that he was really bold. "Miss, may I ask how old you are? Where do you live? Do you have any relatives? Do you have someone in your heart? What do you think of me?" Seeing that Huayi was still chattering, Qin Feiyang directly kicked him and said angrily, "Get lost, don't cause trouble. Zhang Haoyan, you've gone too far. I'm pursuing happiness." Huayi said angrily. The woman in purple's mouth twitched. She looked at Huayi strangely. He actually dared to tease her? This little guy was a little something. P.S. Today's 2 chapters. Let's see who will be at a disadvantage when the time comes. That makes sense. Huayi nodded thoughtfully. He glanced at Shangguan Fenglan and frowned. What about my happiness? Qin Feiyang's veins were bulging. He wanted to slap him. Shouldn't there be a limit to fooling around? Seeing that Qin Feiyang was about to go berserk, Huayi quickly waved his hand and said, Okay, we'll go and apologize. Wait. But at this moment Shangguan Fenglan spoke. Qin Feiyang raised the corner of his mouth, turned around and said, I wonder if Temple Master has any other orders? Don't pretend. Shangguan Fenglan glared at him. I'm innocent. Qin Feiyang looked innocent. Aren't you the one who has been pretending? Shangguan Fenglan looked at the two and asked, Tell me, what do you want? I want you. Huayi chuckled without hesitation. Get lost. Qin Feiyang couldn't bear it anymore and kicked Huayi's butt. Huayi immediately hugged his butt and jumped up, grimacing in pain. What a joke. Qin Feiyang glared fiercely at Huayi, then looked at Shangguan Fenglan and said, First, let me enter the Vice Palace Master's study. Secondly, each of us will pay 100 million soul stones and a legendary level divine art. What? Huayi looked at Qin Feiyang dumbfounded. Entering the Vice Palace Master's study. But 100 million soul stones and a legendary level divine art, this was asking for too much. And 100 million soul stones for each person, one for each person. Shangguan Fenglan was also dumbfounded. She really didn't know how this boy dared to ask for so much. Feng Zihan alone can receive 1,000,000 soul stones every month. I think a few 100 million shouldn't be much to you. As for the legendary level divine art, 9 Heavens Palace, as the largest force in the northern region, must have it. Qin Feiyang said lightly. Aren't you afraid of bursting? Shangguan Fenglan said in a deep voice. Bursting? Palace Master, you underestimate the appetite of this disciple and the others. This is not enough to fill the gaps between our teeth. Qin Feiyang laughed. Shangguan Fenglan laughed angrily. Then shouldn't this palace master thank you? There's no need to thank me. After all, we're not outsiders. If I can help, I'll help. Qin Feiyang laughed. The corner of Shangguan Fenglan's mouth twitched. The soul stones are no problem, but the legendary level divine art is a little difficult. But in comparison, this palace master is more curious. Why do you want to enter the vice palace master's study? In Hua Yi's view, entering the vice palace master's study might be a small matter, but in Shangguan Fenglan's eyes, this was the most important thing to ponder. Qin Feiyang said, purely out of curiosity. Curious? Shangguan Fenglan shook her head disapprovingly and said, how about this? This palace master can agree to the above conditions, but the legendary level divine art must be replaced with a pinnacle level divine art. But these things can only be given to you after the matter is over. After that, she added, in addition, everything you do in the future has nothing to do with this palace master. After the matter is over? Qin Feiyang frowned. What if our lives are in danger? Hua Yi asked. Shangguan Fenglan said lightly, that's your own business. It has nothing to do with this palace master. This? Hua Yi turned his head to look at Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang pondered for a while and shook his head. It's hard to predict the future. If you give it to us after the matter is over, I think we'd better not blindly get involved. Let's go to Feng Yuan and apologize. Okay. Hua Yi nodded. He finally became serious. Threatening me again? Shangguan Fenglan raised her eyebrows. Qin Feiyang pretended not to see it and looked at Hua Yi. When we go to apologize, let's perform well. Maybe we can get more benefits. How should we perform? Hua Yi was suspicious. Qin Feiyang said, tell Feng Yuan that someone wants to harm his family. Boom! As soon as these words came out, Shangguan Fenglan's eyes suddenly turned cold, and a terrifying aura firmly locked onto the two. Hua Yi's pupils shrank, and he quickly became vigilant. Qin Feiyang's expression did not change. He looked at Shangguan Fenglan indifferently and said, this disciple knows that with the strength and status of the palace master, it's easy to kill the two of us. But since we dared to come, that means we're not afraid. You're quite confident. Shangguan Fenglan sneered. Although the strength of this disciple is low, we still have a little confidence. Otherwise, this disciple wouldn't have dared to provoke Feng Wenhai in public at the top of the mountain this morning, Qin Feiyang said. Shangguan Fenglan looked at Qin Feiyang and pondered. A moment later, she withdrew her aura. Hua Yi also breathed a sigh of relief. When he touched his back, it was already dripping with sweat. If this woman flipped out, then this matter would not be settled peacefully. Shangguan Fenglan said, you're talking about yourself, Hua Yi Zhang Rushuang and Zhang Fire Lotus, right? Qin Feiyang nodded. That's a total of 400 million soul stones, for peak-grade deity arts. If it were Feng Yuan, he would definitely be able to take it out directly, but this palace master can't get so much in such a short time. Shangguan Fenglan sighed. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, then Feng Yuan wouldn't dare to embezzle the public funds of 9 Heavens Palace. He wouldn't dare. If he's found to be embezzling public funds, even Feng Yuan would be punished. Shangguan Fenglan said. Qin Feiyang said, then you can't go to the resource hall to ask for these soul stones and deity arts? Of course. 400 million soul stones, for peak-grade deity arts, is not a small amount. If we go to the resource hall, Feng Yuan will definitely ask where these soul stones and deity arts are. Chapter 2007. Looking at Qin Feiyang arguing with Shangguan Fenglan, Hua Yi couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. How could this person be so bold? The enforcement hall master was a core figure of 9 Heavens Palace. Which disciple of Nine Heavens Palace didn't respect her like a god? But this guy not only repeatedly threatened her, but also refused to back down. If the other disciples were to see this, their jaws would probably drop in shock. Brother Jiang, stop arguing. Hui hurriedly interrupted Qin Feiyang. If they continued arguing like this, they would really anger this woman. Brother Jiang, Hall Master, how about this? We each take a step back. 50 million soul stones first. 50 million soul stones. For you, Hall Master, you won't suffer a loss or be cheated. And we won't run away from Nine Heavens Palace for a mere 50 million soul stones. As for the rest, we'll pay you in installments, Hui said. How do we do it in installments? Shangguan Fenglan frowned. Every time we kill someone, you'll give us some. For example, Feng Wenhai. If we kill him in the future, you'll pay us 100 million soul stones. Hui said. Based on the number of people, this idea is not bad. Shangguan Fenglan nodded. Hui looked at Qin Feiyang and asked, Brother Jiang, what do you think? Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and nodded. I have no objection. Isn't this a happy ending? Hui smiled. But words are no proof. Let's write it down. Qin Feiyang said again. Shangguan Fenglan was stunned and immediately said angrily, You're doubting this Hall Master's character. Hall Master, please calm down. Although Brother Jiang's method is wrong, it's pardonable. After all, you're not an ordinary person. If you really go back on your word, then we can only watch helplessly. Hui smiled flatteringly. Fine. As you wish. Shangguan Fenglan glared at the two of them and said in a deep voice. Hui immediately took out a brush, ink, paper and inkstone. Qin Feiyang scribbled furiously and wrote everything on the paper. Then, he pressed a thumbprint on the paper and looked at Shangguan Fenglan. Palace Master, please. Shangguan Fenglan was about to go crazy. He was actually playing such a childish game with two immature brats? It was simply embarrassing. She cut her thumb, gritted her teeth and pressed a fingerprint on it. Hui smiled, it's finally over. Qin Feiyang was also beaming from ear to ear. He carefully put away the receipt, then extended his hand and said with a smile, Lord Hall Master, 50 million soul stones. Wait here. Shangguan Fenglan snorted coldly and turned to enter the attic. Hui laughed mischievously and said, Brother Jiang, we've made a killing this time. I did get the soul stone, but Feng Yuan and the others aren't that easy to deal with. Qin Feiyang sighed. Hui meaningfully said, I think that with Brother Jiang's methods, it shouldn't be too difficult. Qin Feiyang raised his eyebrows and said, From what you said, you're planning to sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. No. Since I've taken the soul stone, then I must contribute. However, I also know that I'm not that capable, so Brother Jiang is still the one who comes up with the plan. I can only assist from the side. Hui laughed. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him. Soon, Shangguan Fenglan came out and threw a Qingkuan bag to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang glanced at it and kept it. Shangguan Fenglan said, Aren't you going to be more careful? Qin Feiyang smiled and said, I still believe in the Palace Master's character. Don't say such high-sounding words. I've already given you 50 million soul stones. I hope to see results as soon as possible. Shangguan Fenglan said with a cold face. Don't worry. Very soon, the Palace Master will know that the 400 million soul stones and the god art will not be spent in vain. Qin Feiyang smiled and looked at Hui. Brother Hua, let's go. You go first, I'll be right there. Hui responded, looked at Shangguan Fenglan, and smiled like a gentleman. Miss, are you free tonight? Shall we go and have a seat? Scram. Shangguan Fenglan's face darkened as she shouted angrily. I'm sincerely inviting you, and I don't have any ulterior motives. I just want to communicate more. Hui licked his face and said shamelessly. But before he could finish, Qin Feiyang angrily dragged him into the Black Tortoise realm and rushed out of the sect like lightning. That's enough. Shangguan Fenglan was about to explode with anger. One openly threatened her, the other unscrupulously teased her, and they were both outer sect disciples. She was a big shot of the Nine Heavens Palace. When had she ever encountered such an encounter? It's best if it can be of some use, otherwise don't blame me for being ruthless. 50 million soul stones. I don't even dare to dream about it. Black Tortoise realm. Qin Feiyong sized up the universe bag, his face full of excitement. To break through to the initial stage of the false god realm, one needed 1,000 soul stones. From initial to small success, one needed 10,000. From small success to large success, 100,000. From large success to perfection, 1 million. From perfection to perfection, one needed 10 million soul stones. In other words, these 50 million soul stones were enough to accumulate 5 perfection war gods in a short period of time. This was a true overnight millionaire. Nie Yun and the other soul stones were nothing. No, Hui still had a portion. Other than Hui's portion, there seemed to be only 30 million left. Wait, this guy, why isn't there any reaction at all? Qin Feiyong turned to look at Hui, only to see him standing at the side with his head lowered. No one knew what he was thinking, but he was giggling non-stop. Qin Feiyong's eyes flashed. He patted Hui and said, "What are you thinking about? What are you doing? You scared me." Hui glared at Qin Feiyong angrily. "You were too engrossed in your thoughts. Tell me, are you thinking about Shangguan Fenglan?" Qin Feiyong asked curiously. "Isn't that nonsense? Could it be that I'm thinking about you?" Hui rolled his eyes at him. Qin Feiyong shook his head and said, "Why are you so stubborn? This woman, you really can't afford to offend her." "I'm only interested in women that I can't afford to offend." Hui chuckled. "You really won't turn back until you hit the wall. How about this, I'll help you," Qin Feiyong said. "Really?" Hui's eyes lit up. "Of course, us brothers, would we lie to you? But if I help you, you have to repay me. You don't need these soul stones and divine arts." Qin Feiyong laughed. Hui was stunned. He immediately rolled his eyes and said, "I knew you didn't feel at ease. Let me tell you, don't play dumb with me. This time, not a single soul stone less. Let me calculate 50 million soul stones. For people equally. 1 for 1. 1 for 2. I've calculated each of us will get 12. 5 million soul stones. This is just enough for me to break through from the advanced god of war to the peak. Give it to me." Hui stretched out his hand, looked at Qin Feiyong and chuckled. Did he really think he was a fool? Such a large amount of soul stones, he didn't even dare to think about it before. Now that it was in front of him, how could he not want it? "Let me tell you, you're so stingy you'll never get Shangguan Fenglan." Qin Feiyong snorted coldly. "This is 2 different things. It's irrelevant. Don't talk nonsense. If you want to take it all for yourself, I'm not done with you." Hui said. All right, who wants to take it all for himself? Don't think that I'm as shameless as you, okay?" Qin Feiyong pursed his lips and carefully counted out 12. 5 million soul stones, not one more, not one less, and threw it to Hui. In other words, right now he only had 37. 5 million left. However, he should be satisfied. This amount of soul stones, if placed on an outer court disciple, he would not be able to earn so much in his lifetime. Half an hour later, Qin Feiyong and Hui finally returned to the outer court cave. But as soon as they entered the cave, Qin Feiyong and Hui were stunned. Fire Lotus was sitting on a stool in a daze. Her face was stained with blood and her body was also somewhat dirty. She didn't even notice Qin Feiyong and Hui entering the cave. "What's going on?" Qin Feiyong glanced at the cave. When he saw the broken mask on the ground, his entire body was filled with killing intent. He walked in front of Fire Lotus and asked in a deep voice, "Who did this?" "Brother." As soon as Fire Lotus heard Qin Feiyong's voice, she immediately shed tears of grievance. "Who is it? Tell me. I'll go kill him right now." Chapter 2008. He even dares to bully my little sister. He's simply courting death. There must be a conclusion to this matter. I will immediately investigate Shirtai's background, Hui said in a deep voice. Qin Feiyong was slightly stunned. He looked at Hui and said, "When did Fire Lotus become your little sister? Do we still need to distinguish between each other? She's your little sister. Isn't that the same as my little sister? Besides, Fire Lotus calls me Big Brother Hui. As a man, how can I let her be wronged?" Hui said angrily. Fire Lotus was moved and said, "Thank you, Big Brother Hui. We're all family, don't be so polite." Hui smiled and looked at Qin Feiyong. I will go investigate now, wait for my news. Qin Feiyong nodded. Hui turned around and walked a few steps, but suddenly turned to Fire Lotus and said with a grin, sister, you should continue to wear a mask in the future. Why? Fire Lotus was stunned and looked at Hui suspiciously. Because you're too beautiful. If those disciples outside saw you, wouldn't they come looking for you every day? I believe you wouldn't like having a bunch of flies following you around all day. Hui chuckled. What nonsense are you talking about? Fire Lotus said angrily, her cheeks flushed red. After Hui left the cave, Qin Feiyong wiped the blood on Fire Lotus's face and said with a smile, go wash up in the Black Tortoise world and relax. Fire Lotus nodded. Qin Feiyong waved his hand, and the Red Lotus instantly disappeared. Sure Tai, I want to see who gave you the courage to hit my people. Qin Feiyong muttered. A cold light flashed in his eyes and he followed Hui into the castle. Fire Lotus, are you alright? Mermaid Princess voice suddenly sounded. Qin Feiyong was stunned and turned to Mermaid Princess. He saw the Mermaid Princess sitting cross-legged on the ground and looking at Qin Feiyong with concern. She's fine. Qin Feiyong waved his hand and took out the Qinkuan bag. He smiled and said, these soul stones should be enough for you to cultivate for a while. Everyone opened their eyes and looked at the Qinkuan bag with joy. Tantai Li's gaze turned to Qin Feiyong and said, Feiyong, you to cultivate. Look at your cultivation. You've been in the ancient world for so long but you've made no progress at most half a month. Qin Feiyong said. Okay, I'll start cultivating now. Qin Feiyong nodded and said with a smile. He didn't know how long it would take to refine a soul stone now. He remembered that it used to take half an hour to refine one. After taking out a soul stone and putting the Qinkuan bag on the altar, Qin Feiyong sat cross-legged on the ground and started to refine it silently. Inside the castle, time flew by. About half an hour later, the soul stone in his hand was finally refined. The time has been shortened by half? Qin Feiyong was stunned. In other words, now he could refine 4 soul stones in 2 hours. 48 soul stones in 24 hours a day. It took 100,000 divine gems to break through to the advanced divine gems. 100,000 divided by 48 was more than 2,080 days. About 5.5 years. What? 5.5 years? Qin Feiyong was dumbfounded. He didn't know this, but he was shocked when he calculated. It took more than 5 years to refine 100,000 soul stones? He was really lucky to have the castle. Otherwise, it would take him a whole 5 to 6 years just to refine these soul stones. The castle's time rule was that 1 day outside was 1 year inside. In other words, now he only needed 5 to 6 days to refine 100,000 soul stones and step into the advanced divine gems. Compared to others, this really saved a lot of time. Late at night, above the 9th heaven palace, a waning moon emitted a weak light. A black shadow quietly came to the sword peak and gently knocked on the tightly shut stone door. The next moment, the stone door opened. Qin Feiyong stood inside the door and looked at the black shadow with a smile. Come in. After the black shadow entered, Qin Feiyong closed the stone door, turned around and waved his hand. A flame appeared, illuminating the entire cave. And the person standing in front of him was Gao Xiaolong. Of course, before Gao Xiaolong came, he had sent a message to Qin Feiyong in advance, so Qin Feiyong was able to open the door in time without any accident. Gao Xiaolong took out 2 jade boxes from his chest and handed them to Qin Feiyong, smiling. This is what senior brother Feng asked me to give you. 2 jade boxes, one was the size of a palm, square in shape. The other one was a rectangular jade box that was a foot long. Qin Feiyong first grabbed the square jade box and opened the lid. A black fruit appeared in front of him. This fruit was only the size of a baby's fist, exuding a trace of black fog, filled with an evil aura. That's right. This was the death god fruit. After closing the lid of the box, Qin Feiyong took the long jade box and opened it to take a look. Surprisingly, there was a tree branch that was half a foot long lying inside. This branch was perfectly round, similar to a straight chopstick. It was pitch black with yin energy swirling around it. In a trance, one could even hear ghostly laughter coming from the yin energy. Yin Soulwood. Qin Feiyong's eyes lit up. This young Master Feng was indeed amazing. He got his hands on the death god fruit and yin Soulwood so quickly. Gao Xiaolong said, Young Master Feng also said that although he can't help you with things like soul stones, he can provide you with some herbs. If you need anything in the future, don't hesitate to look for him. I was still thinking that Shangguan Fenglan could get her hands on 400 million soul stones, so she has such a sister. But this Shangguan Qiu is really not simple. Master is the Treasure Pavilion's chief pavilion master. Her sister is the hall master of the law enforcement hall. No wonder she didn't even take Feng Zijuan seriously back then. Hui sighed. The two sisters. Then I think Shangguan Qiu is more suitable for you than Shangguan Fenglan. Qin Feiyang teased. What are you talking about? Am I the kind of person who plays around? Hui angrily glared at Qin Feiyang, but then he rolled his eyes and changed the topic. He laughed mischievously and said, however, if I can get both of these sisters, then I'll be able to hold my head high for the rest of my life. In the future, I'll be able to walk with my back straight. Qin Feiyang was stunned and kicked him without hesitation, saying angrily, Get out of my sight as far as you can, and don't appear in front of me again. You're jealous. Hui hurriedly dodged, and then raised his middle finger. He scorned Qin Feiyang and then disappeared like a wisp of smoke. You want to get the sisters and you say you're not a playboy? I've really never seen such a shameless person. Qin Feiyang shook his head. However, now the relationship seemed to have become a little complicated. Shangguan Qiu cooperated with Mu Tianyang. He cooperated with Shangguan Fenglan, and he and Mu Tianyang were life and death enemies. She was almost unable to make sense of it. Headache. Rubbing his forehead, Qin Feiyang closed the stone door of the cave residence, entered the ancient castle, and continued to refine the soul stones. Chapter 2009. Between the inner and outer gates, there was a wide river that meandered from north to south. There was a huge square above the river. In the middle of the square there were 10 altars. On each altar there was a number. Battlefield number 1, battlefield number 2, and finally battlefield number 10. That's right. This was the entrance to the battlefield. Early in the morning, people came to the square one after another. There are a lot of people here today. A mere outer disciple is so popular? Brother, that's not right. Everyone is here to watch the show. Don't you think this Zhang Haotian is too daring? He even dares to offend Feng Zijuan? He's courting his own death. Before Zhang Haotian entered Empyrean Palace, as long as he hid, Feng Zijuan couldn't do anything to him. Now that he has entered Empyrean Palace, how can Feng Zijuan deal with him? Isn't it as easy as killing a chicken? That's right. It's said that a newborn calf isn't afraid of a tiger. Now it seems that it's not without reason. He even dares to accept Shurtai's challenge. Shurtai is a half-step divine lord. I heard that he has a perfect divine technique and a perfect support divine technique. He even has a supreme grade divine artifact. How can an outer sect disciple defeat him? Everyone was discussing. When the sun rose, there were already tens of thousands of people gathered in the square. Most of them were outer disciples. The square could hold 50 to 60,000 people. It was very big. Move. Suddenly, a slightly arrogant laugh sounded. Fatso, who was wearing a golden coat, had all kinds of golden rings on his hands and a thick golden chain around his neck. Behind him were 2 followers. He looked like a local tycoon as he swaggered into the square. Brother Fatty, you're here. Brother Fatty, the same old rules. Seeing Fatso arrive, everyone was a little afraid and a little expectant. Of course, Fatso walked to a corner of the square and waved his sleeves. A big golden table appeared on the ground. Let's cut the crap. Shurtai 1 to 1. Zhang Haotian 1 to 10. Those who are not betting, please move aside and make way. As soon as Fatso finished speaking, the people in the square immediately swarmed forward. I bet on Shurtai. I also bet on Shurtai. It's obvious. We have to bet on Shurtai. Everyone took out their soul stones. Some bet a dozen, some bet a few hundred, and some bet a few thousand. A short while later, the table was filled with soul stones. The 2 lackeys were busy collecting soul stones and taking notes at the same time. Seeing the crowd swarming over, Fatso beamed with joy. I bet 50,000 soul stones. I bet 100,000. To be able to take out so many soul stones, one had to be an inner disciple. Furthermore, he had to be one of the top inner disciples. It's so lively. At this moment, 2 men and 1 woman stepped into the square. When they saw the scene in front of them, they were stunned. They were Mu Tianyang, Mu Qing, and Guisweki. What? 1 to 10? When they heard everyone's discussion, Mu Tianyang and Mu Qing looked at each other. Such a high payout. Mu Qing laughed secretly. Ancestor, isn't this obviously giving us soul stones? Keep it low, keep it low. Mu Tianyang chuckled, walked to the table, took out a Chenkuan bag and slapped it on the table. Fatso was stunned. He looked at the Chenkuan bag and thought to himself, so arrogant, could it be that he was a rich man? Mu Tianyang glanced at the people around and suddenly grinned, saying, I bet on Jiang Haotian 5 million soul stones. As soon as these words came out, the entire place fell into dead silence. Everyone looked at Mu Tianyang in shock. Fatso and the 2 lackeys were also stunned. They had completely forgotten what they were doing. Voila! There was no suspense. The next moment, the square was in an uproar. What? It's actually Jiang Haotian. It's still 5 million soul stones. Oh my god, he's crazy. Who is he? Isn't he afraid that these 5 million soul stones will be wasted? Fatso came back to his senses and grabbed the Chenkuan bag. After carefully looking at it for a while, his face suddenly twitched. There really were 5 million soul stones. So many soul stones. Who wouldn't be tempted? Fatso swallowed his saliva, looked up at Mu Tianyang and asked, Are you sure you want to bet on Jiang Haotian? I'm sure. Mu Tianyang nodded. Generous. Courageous. You're the first person who dares to bet on Jiang Haotian. Fatso laughed and even gave Mu Tianyang a thumbs up, saying, Tell me your name. Mu Tianyang. Mu Tianyang said. Fatso looked at the 2 lackeys beside him and said happily, Quickly write it down. Okay. The 2 lackeys, one carefully counted the soul stones, and the other recorded Mu Tianyang's name. Mu Tianyang? This name is so unfamiliar. Wait, I heard that among the new disciples this time, there seems to be someone called Mu Tianyang. A new disciple actually has 5 million soul stones. Could he be a disciple of a big family? But to take out 5 million soul stones at once, even those famous rich families don't seem to have the ability to do so. The surrounding disciples felt that it was very unbelievable. Hearing this, Mu Qing sneered. What was 5 million? In a while, this 5 million would become 50 million. Just thinking about it made him excited. What is it? Someone dares to bet on Jiang Haotian. 5 million soul stones? A surprised voice suddenly rang out. It's Shi Tai. Everyone turned their heads and saw a young man in black standing at the entrance of the square with a stunned face. If it wasn't Shi Tai, who else could it be? The people automatically moved aside to make a path. Shi Tai walked step by step to the gambling table and glanced at the crowd. He raised his eyebrows and said, Who bet on Jiang Haotian? Me. Mu Tianyang smiled faintly. You? You dare to bet on Jiang Haotian? Aren't you afraid of losing everything? Shi Tai sized up Mu Tianyang and sneered. It's our freedom to bet on whoever we want. As for whether or not I'll lose everything, we'll know when the results are out. Mu Tianyang smiled. Haha, I've never seen such a stupid person. Shi Tai laughed, took out a Chenkuan bag, threw it on the table, and said to Fatso, I'll bet 500,000 soul stones on myself. Okay. Fatso nodded. Kid, you'll regret this. Just you wait. Shi Tai smiled coldly at Mu Tianyang, then walked to the altar of the first battlefield. He crossed his arms, glanced at the crowd and asked, Jiang Haotian hasn't arrived yet? I didn't see him. Everyone shook their heads. Don't tell me he's too scared to come? Shi Tai laughed. Many people also burst into laughter. Jiang Haotian's strength is indeed not good, but he's not that timid. However, at this moment, a faint laughter sounded. Everyone looked up and saw 3 figures flying through the air. The one in the lead was Qin Feiyang. Hua Yi and Fire Lotus followed behind him. Hua Lian also listened to Hua Yi's words, and put on another mask. Looking at the arrogant Shi Tai, a cold glint flickered in the eyes of the 3. They're here. They're finally here. Everyone quickly retreated to the side. Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus landed in front of Shi Tai. They really dare to come? Sure Tai was stunned. Qin Feiyong smiled. For the sake of face I have to come, right? Sure Tai was slightly taken aback. He chuckled and said, face is worthless. Yes, face is worthless at all. What's valuable is life. Qin Feiyong nodded. Haha, so you also understand. Sure Tai laughed. Of course I understand. Qin Feiyong smiled. The smell of gunpowder is coming. Mu Tianyang smiled secretly. I'm a little puzzled. Isn't Qin Feiyong always afraid of trouble? Why did he accept Sure Tai's challenge this time? Mu Qing was suspicious. I think this Sure Tai must have done something to make him angry. Mu Tianyang guessed. Sure Tai looked at Qin Feiyong and said, let's not talk nonsense and enter the battlefield. Okay. Qin Feiyong smiled. Brother Jiang, wait. Hui suddenly said. What's wrong? Qin Feiyong looked at him in confusion. Hui pointed to the gambling table and said, before entering the battlefield, you have to bet first. Bet? Qin Feiyong was stunned. There's no time to explain. Come with me. Hui dragged Qin Feiyong to the gambling table and looked at Fatso with a smile. What's the odds for Zhang Haotian? Fatso glanced at the two and said, 1 to 10. So high? Hui was stunned. His eyes suddenly shone with green light. Without hesitation, he took out a Chenkuan bag and threw it on the table, saying, I bet 12. 5 million soul stones on Zhang Haotian. What? 12. 5 million. Oh my god. So much. Previously, that Mu Tianyang bet 5 million soul stones on Zhang Haotian. That was already shocking enough. Now there's another 12. 5 million. How many nouveaux riches are among the new disciples this time? The square was once again in an uproar. Fatso was also petrified on the spot. 5 million. Qin Feiyong heard everyone's discussion and turned to look at Mu Tianyang. I didn't take a single soul stone from you. Why are you looking at me like that? Mu Tianyang said indifferently. You didn't take my soul stones, but how many villages and noble families did you have to kill to get 5 million soul stones? This doesn't include the soul stones that you and Mu Qing have already refined. You're really ruthless. Qin Feiyong said in a deep voice. Don't worry too much. In this world, the weak are prey to the strong. Besides, not all the villages and noble clans were massacred by me. Most of them, I only looted their treasure vaults. Mu Tianyang said indifferently. Qin Feiyong shook his head and sighed. Uncle Yuan shouldn't have saved this person in the first place. This was simply a scourge. While the two were talking, Fatso had already checked Hui's Chenkuan bag. He looked at Hui in a daze and asked, brother, are you serious? Of course. Hui nodded. What are you waiting for? Hurry up and register. Fatso's face was red as he roared at the two followers. Literature Museum. You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.